Chapter 1821. However, although Morong Yu's strength was increasing, the amount of energy he needed was simply too much. The amount of energy he needed was simply too terrifying. It was difficult for him to break through to the 3-star Supreme Realm. However, wasn't there Ash Wolf Supreme now? Thus, after Morong Yu refined the toxic torrent, he gradually made the phenomenon that he deliberately showed Ash Wolf Supreme and the others disappear. Why isn't he dead yet? It seems like he's detoxifying the poison? Seeing that the black gas on Morong Yu's face was getting less and less, True Martial Supreme and the others looked at Ash Wolf Supreme with doubtful eyes again. Ash Wolf Supreme was also depressed. Wasn't Morong Yu too strong? He still wasn't dead? And he still hadn't detoxified the poison? I want to see if you can really detoxify the poison. Ash Wolf Supreme was furious. With a black face, he charged toward Morong Yu again. In the next moment, a large mass of black fog enveloped Morong Yu again. Like a raging wave, a huge torrent rushed into Morong Yu's body again. This idiot! Morong Yu couldn't help but laugh in his heart. However, the more idiotic Ash Wolf Supreme was, the less he would be. The more idiotic he was, the more Morong Yu's strength would increase. Thus, Morong Yu continued to refine the toxic torrent without batting an eyelid. At the same time, he also did some superficial things for Ash Wolf Supreme to see. When he was almost done refining, Ash Wolf Supreme added more poison to Morong Yu's body with a black face. As this cycle continued, Morong Yu's strength unknowingly increased by a lot. However, Morong Yu felt that it was a pity that although he had swallowed a large amount of toxic torrent, his strength didn't carry the toxic energy. Otherwise, with the strength of the toxic energy, ordinary Supremes would be poisoned to death just by smelling it. However, Morong Yu only felt that it was a pity. After all, he had never needed to use poison. This guy had used the pink death to trick people many times before. Bastard! After using the poison again, Ash Wolf Supreme couldn't help but curse in his heart. His face also darkened, because he had run out of poison. Of course, he wouldn't say it out loud. Without these poisons, Supreme True Martial and the others wouldn't have any misgivings about him. He needed to use these poisons to intimidate Supreme True Martial and the others. It was just that Morong Yu was unable to poison him to death from beginning to end. Instead, he suppressed Sovereign Ash Wolf. He knew how terrifying these poisons were. Back then, when he was refining, he had accidentally come into contact with a trace of poisonous fog. However, he had to cultivate his race for an era before he was able to expel it. But Morong Yu, is his strength really that heaven-defying? Sovereign Ash Wolf was shocked. He looked at Morong Yu with eyes that flickered with a terrifying killing intent. That's right, he was jealous. Do any of you feel that something is wrong? True Martial Supreme sent a voice transmission to the other titled Supremes apart from Ash Wolf Supreme. Ash Wolf's poison isn't reliable. I think Morong Yu is completely fine. Why don't we just take him down? Phoenix Supreme sent a voice transmission. At first, they were still frightened by Ash Wolf Supreme's poison. But now, it seemed that it was useless. Attack! The few of them looked at each other. Then, they opened their big hands and directly grabbed at Morong Yu. At the same time, Ash Wolf Supreme didn't seem to believe in his poison. He also stretched out his wolf claws and slapped at Morong Yu. At this moment, his eyes, which had been tightly shut, suddenly opened. 2 rays of light flashed from his eyes and shot up to the 9 heavens. At the same time, an aura stronger than before emitted from Morong Yu's body. It was earth-shattering. Ash Wolf, thank you for helping me increase my strength. Morong Yu laughed heartily. Not only did he not retreat in the face of the attacks from Honorable True Martial and the others, he even rushed forward and sent a punch out. Ash Wolf Supreme was infuriated. Even a blind person could see that. Morong Yu's strength had increased. Why? Wasn't it all because of his poison? Supreme True Martial and the others fiercely glared at Ash Wolf Supreme. Murong Yu was already strong enough. Now, he was even stronger. Did Ash Wolf Supreme want to kill Murong Yu or help him increase his strength? At this moment, Supreme True Marshal and the others couldn't help but want to kill Ash Wolf Supreme with a punch. This guy really couldn't do anything right. What they didn't know was that Ash Wolf Supreme was even more depressed. He originally wanted to kill Murong Yu with his poison. But he didn't expect that not only did he fail to kill Murong Yu, but he also helped Murong Yu increase his strength. Murong Yu could actually refine the poison. How terrifying was that? Ash Wolf Supreme's eyes were filled with killing intent. But more than that, he was greedy. He attributed all of this to the chaotic celestial body. He felt that it was because of this body that he couldn't poison Murong Yu to death. On the contrary, he used the poison to increase his strength. Therefore, his desire to seize Murong Yu's body burned even more fiercely. In truth, if he could think this way, Supreme True Marshal and the others would also think this way. Kill! Murong Yu bellowed as he threw a punch at her. Rumble, after an earth-shattering explosion, a terrifying force suddenly erupted. Immediately, Supreme True Marshal and the others were sent flying as if they had been hit by several primordial sacred mountains. In fact, in the process they were even vomiting blood violently. They were no match for Murong Yu. Now that Murong Yu had become stronger, they were even less of a match for him. How dare you target me, Shengzhen? You deserve to die. All of you must die. Murong Yu's expression was indifferent and his voice was cold. As he spoke, he punched out once again. Boom. 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 Supreme True Marshal and the others couldn't block it at all. They were sent flying by Murong Yu's punch and were injured again. However, Murong Yu couldn't kill all 8 of them with one punch. After all, they were titled Supreme True Marshal. It was easy to defeat them but difficult to kill them. However, they had to be killed. After all, they had wanted to kill Murong Yu for a long time. Murong Yu would never allow those who wanted to kill him to continue living, unless he didn't have the strength to kill them. Moreover, even if Murong Yu didn't kill them, the heavens would kill them when they returned. Instead of being killed by the heavens, it was better for him to kill them. Moreover, Murong Yu could refine their bodies to increase his strength. Everyone, let's work together to kill this bastard. Supreme Being True Marshal was enraged as he was repeatedly sent flying by Murong Yu. This made him feel endless humiliation. He hadn't been treated like this for countless years. Supreme Grey Wolf and the others nodded and attacked Murong Yu again. Murong Yu wasn't afraid. On the contrary, he laughed loudly. You will all be killed by me in the end. Supreme Grey Wolf, in order to thank you, I will definitely kill you first today. As he spoke, Murong Yu took a step in the air and passed through endless time and space, pouncing toward Supreme Grey Wolf. Supreme Grey Wolf was furious and murderous. Murong Yu, I admit that you are strong. But if you want to kill me, you are dreaming. As he spoke, Supreme Grey Wolf unleashed a terrifying power and attacked Murong Yu crazily. Is that so? Murong Yu smiled coldly and didn't say anything else. He couldn't be bothered to talk to these dead people. He used the army word technique and disappeared from the spot with a whoosh. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Supreme Grey Wolf. As for Murong Yu, he had already stretched out his hand and grabbed at Ash Wolf. Shock flashed past Supreme Grey Wolf's eyes. Murong Yu was too fast. With a thought, Supreme Grey Wolf was about to retreat. At the same time, he slammed his claw at Murong Yu. Domain, suppress for me. Murong Yu shouted angrily in his heart. A large part of the power of the domain suppressed Supreme Grey Wolf. The reason why Murong Yu was so strong was because he had refined 3/9 of the Holy World's source energy. Otherwise, no matter how strong he was, it would be difficult for him to suppress Supreme True Marshal and the other titled Supremes with a single punch. Plop! Under the suppression of the power of the domain, Supreme Grey Wolf was suppressed to the point that he seemed to have lost the ability to fly. He fell down. Holy Soul Slash. Murong Yu's figure dashed forward as a Saint's Soul Slash came crashing down with incomparable ferocity. At this moment, Supreme Grey Wolf was suppressed by the domain and had lost the ability to fight back. How could he block the soul attack? Therefore, Murong Yu's soul attack went straight in and hit Supreme Grey Wolf's soul. An 8-star soul with the power of faith. What could Ash Wolf use to defend against it? With a pew sound, Supreme Grey Wolf's soul was shattered. Rumble, just as Supreme Grey Wolf's soul was shattered, a heaven and earth avatar appeared. Blood clouds and blood rain covered the entire holy world. Moreover, these heaven and earth avatars were many times more serious than before. After all, this was the death of a titled supremacy. Supreme Grey Wolf had died. When Supreme True Marshal and the other titled Supremes saw the heaven and earth avatar appear, they were shocked. Even their attacks toward Murong Yu stopped. Murong Yu could kill titled Supremes in an instant. He could also kill them in an instant. His strength was actually this strong. Whoosh! At the same time, they unleashed their strongest attacks toward Murong Yu. At the same time, as if they had discussed it, they turned around and flew in different directions. They actually fled without a fight. Today, none of you can escape. With a thought, Murong Yu kept Supreme Grey Wolf's body and spatial treasure into the Hichu Luoshu. At the same time, he opened up his domain and covered the entire area. Today, he was going to start a massacre and kill all these titled Supremes. As the domain descended, Supreme True Marshal was suppressed to the point that he could not move. The incomparably powerful pressure was crazily suppressing their power, trying to restrict their power. At the same time, Murong Yu attacked again. Locking onto the Phoenix Sovereign, he sent a fierce punch flying towards her. Chapter 1822. Phoenix Sovereign's heart was instantly enveloped by an incomparably strong aura of death. In an instant, Phoenix Sovereign was scared half to death. He had seen with his own eyes how Murong Yu had killed Ash Wolf Sovereign. His strength was about the same as Ash Wolf Sovereign's. In other words, Murong Yu was absolutely confident that he could kill him in a single blow. Overwhelmed with shock, the Phoenix Sovereign raised her speed to the limit. At the same time, she took out her supreme artifact and unleashed her strongest attack toward Murong Yu. As a supreme being, especially a titled supreme being, every single one of them was extremely talented and confident. Even in the face of death, they would definitely not sit still and wait for it. Therefore, even though Murong Yu was strong and Phoenix Sovereign was shocked, he still attacked Murong Yu. He didn't just run away, because attacking was the best defense. You will definitely die today. Murong Yu sneered in his heart. Taking a step forward, his figure flashed and dodged the opponent's attack. At the same time, his soul attack was also incomparably fierce. Domain Power Suppression. Holy Soul Slash. The Holy Soul Slash mixed with the power of faith was definitely Murong Yu's strongest single-target soul attack. Under the suppression of the domain power, Phoenix Sovereign's fate would definitely be the same as Ash Wolf's. He would definitely die. As expected, when Murong Yu's domain power crazily suppressed him, Phoenix Sovereign's body suddenly turned sluggish. Like Ash Wolf Sovereign, his body fell straight down. At this moment, Phoenix Sovereign finally understood why Ash Wolf Sovereign couldn't block Murong Yu's attack at that moment. It was because he was the same. At this moment, it seemed like his strength was being suppressed. Phoenix Sovereign roared in his heart. Because he knew that even if he was only suppressed for an instant, it was enough for Murong Yu to kill him millions of times. Break for me. Under the incomparably terrifying suppression, Phoenix Sovereign roared in his heart, wanting to break through the suppression of the domain power. However, he was currently suppressed by 1/3 of the holy world. Could a mere titled sovereign like him resist the suppression of 1/3 of the holy world? No. The aura of death in Phoenix Sovereign's heart grew stronger and stronger. The dense aura of death was so oppressive that he could barely breathe. In fact, Phoenix Sovereign could already see Murongyu's soul force transforming into a war blade that was slashing towards her with incomparable ferocity, about to slay her soul. At this moment, Phoenix Sovereign's soul began to tremble violently. He even had a strong urge to escape from the soul space. Murongyu had a look of contempt on his face. It was not difficult for him to kill a titled supreme martial artist. The Phoenix Sovereign was dead for sure. The Phoenix Sovereign was about to be killed by Murongyu. But at this moment, an incomparably terrifying pressure came crashing down from the sky. A monstrous hand that contained a terrifying aura that could destroy the heavens and earth suddenly grabbed down. In the blink of an eye, the giant hand had already slammed into Murongyu's domain. Bang! After an earth-shattering explosion, Murongyu was caught off guard. The domain that was condensed from the holy world's origin energy was directly hit by the giant hand. A huge force exploded, and a crack sound was heard. Murongyu's domain was smashed apart. At the same time, the gigantic hand made a grabbing motion in the air, directly grabbing towards the Phoenix Sovereign. With a bang, Murongyu was sent flying. The strength of that force was the strongest aura that Murongyu had ever seen. It was extremely terrifying. It could easily kill a titled supreme martial artist. Even the current Murongyu was not a match for that person. Because Murongyu had suddenly been sent flying, his soul attack had naturally deviated from its original trajectory and couldn't kill the Phoenix Sovereign. Instead, it flew past Phoenix Sovereign, causing her to break out in cold sweat. After all, the Phoenix Sovereign was also a titled supremacy, so she had already seized this opportunity to retreat. However, at this moment, the giant hand that suddenly appeared had already flipped over. With a swoosh, Phoenix Sovereign did not even have time to react before her neck was grabbed by the giant hand. It was like grabbing a little chick. At this moment, everyone, including Murongyu, was stunned. He grabbed Phoenix Sovereign by the neck, and Phoenix Sovereign didn't even have time to react. It was like a supreme martial artist grabbing a primal chaos ancestor sage. This was the difference between them. At the same time, 3 words appeared in the minds of Murongyu and the others. Chang Tian was back. Yes, in the entire holy world, other than Chang Tian, who else had such strength? In other words, other than Chang Tian, who else could break Murongyu's domain with a single blow? Murongyu had refined 3 out of 9 of the holy world's origin energy. On the other hand, Chang Tian had refined 4 out of 9 of the holy world's origin energy. In essence, Chang Tian's holy world's origin energy was definitely stronger than Murongyu's. Indeed, in the next moment, Chang Tian appeared before everyone's eyes. It was also at this moment that Murongyu saw Chang Tian's true body for the first time. Previously, he had only seen Chang Tian's clone. Murongyu, you have truly disappointed me. Chang Tian's cold gaze swept across Supremacy True Martial and the others before finally landing on Murongyu's face. Chang Tian's indifferent gaze contained a hint of passion. Murongyu was actually a little nervous, even though he appeared calm on the surface. However, in secret, he had already raised his strength and faith to the extreme. If Chang Tian made a move, he would definitely not sit still and wait for death. However, what made Murongyu a little depressed was that he had not expected to face Chang Tian so early. Although they would have to face off sooner or later, it was still early. But it still seemed a little early. Heaven was back. Did he succeed in breaking through reincarnation, or did he fail? Chang Tian, you have also disappointed me. Murongyu looked at Chang Tian without fear. However, Supremacy True Martial and the others staggered and almost fell down. Chang Tian was the strongest person in the holy world. Murongyu actually dared to speak to Chang Tian like that? What about them? They had long since stopped talking. Because of the huge difference in strength, they did not dare to speak. Very good, let's fight. It's best if both sides are injured. Supremacy Shui Tao and the others cursed in their hearts. Whether it was Murong Yu or Chang Tian, they were both stronger than them. They were the two ancient sacred mountains that floated above their head. They were not willing to be enveloped by their light and struggle at death's door. This was because if either of these two gods was unhappy, they could kill them. Under the illumination of their light, they were no different from ordinary saints. Chang Tian's eyes flashed with a cold light when he heard this. A terrifying killing intent erupted from his body like a storm, sweeping in all directions. However, it was quickly restrained. It was just a flash. Murong Yu, you destroyed my power clone, the palace and the Chang Tian mountain range. You even saved Nuwa. Do you know that every single one of these crimes is punishable by death? Heaven looked at Murong Yu and questioned him. Although he was questioning him, his voice was cold and emotionless. Pooh! Supremacy True Marshal and the others immediately spat out. They knew that Murong Yu was strong, but did he have to be so strong? He actually destroyed Chang Tian's everything when Chang Tian was not around? Murong Yu's strength should have increased because of this, right? He must have eaten or refined some treasure from Chang Tian to have his current strength. Thinking of this, Supremacy True Marshal and the others secretly regretted. If they took the opportunity to destroy Chang Tian's headquarters, would they be as strong as Murong Yu? They might even surpass Murong Yu and be on par with Chang Tian. However, what they did not know was that if they were in Chang Tian's place, not only would their strength not increase like Murong Yu, they would have been killed long ago. Murong Yu laughed. Isn't my increase in strength what you want to see the most? Isn't it what you want now? Chang Tian laughed as well. However, there was a terrifying killing intent deep in his eyes. That's right. Now, you barely qualify to be possessed by me. A supremacy-level body is enough to contain my soul. I guess you won't dare to make a move now. Murong Yu looked at Chang Tian with a smile. He was not afraid at all. It was as if he was having a heart-to-heart talk with a friend. The killing intent in Chang Tian's eyes grew stronger and his pupils shrank. Murong Yu's rise shocked him. In particular, Murong Yu had already refined 3/9 of the Holy World's origin energy. Although his Holy World's origin energy was stronger than Murong Yu's, he could not suppress him. Moreover, Murong Yu could see through his situation. The more it was like this, the more Chang Tian did not dare to make a move. Ha ha ha! Chang Tian laughed and said, Murong Yu, I hope you can reach the 9-star supremacy level as soon as possible. When that time comes, I will possess your body. I hope you won't disappoint me this time. As for them, although they are a little useless, they are very important in the holy world. Therefore, I don't want you to kill them. As he spoke, he had already tossed Phoenix Sovereign out. Then, he disappeared on the spot. What are you waiting for? His voice was like a flood. Supremacy True Marshal and the others' faces changed slightly. After exchanging glances with each other, they finally unfolded their bodies and chased after the sky. Whoosh! Whoosh! Wushuang and Nuwa instantly appeared by Murong Yu's side. Murong Yu, why didn't Chang Tian make a move on you? Supremacy Wushuang asked Murong Yu with lingering fear. Just now, she was truly afraid that the heavens would slap her and Murong Yu to death. After all, she was also responsible for destroying Chang Tian's base. Because he didn't dare to. Murong Yu's eyes flashed and he said with a smile. Wushuang and Nuwa looked at Murong Yu in confusion. Chang Tian must have failed to break through reincarnation and is severely injured. Murong Yu said calmly. His eyes flashed with terrifying killing intent. Chapter 1823. Chang Tian had failed to break through reincarnation? He was severely injured? Wushuang and Nuwa looked at Murong Yu in disbelief. Their faces were filled with doubt. Didn't they say that there were only 2 outcomes for breaking through reincarnation? One was to succeed in breaking through reincarnation and be able to leave the holy world and travel the universe. The other was to fail in breaking through reincarnation and die. Usually, only one out of billions of experts could successfully break through reincarnation. As for the others, they would all die. However, Song Tian had failed in breaking through reincarnation, but he didn't die. It wasn't that Nuwa and Wushuang didn't believe Morongyu. It was just that it was too shocking. Morongyu nodded. Although Song Tian had exploded with strength that was many times stronger than his, that should have been his strongest attack. Although Song Tian had concealed it well and no one else had noticed it. However, Morongyu could feel that the aura in Song Tian's body was extremely chaotic. It was a situation where he was severely injured. Morongyu guessed that Towering wouldn't be able to unleash any more attacks just now. Otherwise, why didn't Song Tian attack Morongyu? Even if he didn't possess Morongyu on the spot, he would have captured Morongyu. If that's the case, why didn't you take the opportunity to kill Song Tian? Wushuang looked at Morongyu and asked in confusion. Morongyu shook his head. That was the best opportunity. However, he didn't attack. Why? If Song Tian could be killed so easily, he would have attacked long ago. He could vaguely guess that Song Tian had something else up his sleeve. If he attacked, he might not be able to kill Song Tian, or he might only be able to severely injure him. However, he would definitely die. As the strongest expert in the holy world, Morongyu wouldn't believe that Song Tian didn't have any trump cards up his sleeve. What should we do next? Wait for Song Tian to recover his strength? Once Song Tian recovers his strength, he will definitely attack us, Nuwa said with a frown. After seeing Song Tian, she didn't feel too good. I'll try my best to increase my strength. If I don't put my life on the line, it won't be easy for the heavens to kill me. Morongyu said indifferently. As he spoke, he took a step forward and prepared to enter the primeval world. But at this moment, extremely suddenly, clouds of blood and rain appeared, enveloping the entire saint's world. The might of this worldly anomaly was exactly the same as when Morongyu had killed the Ash Wolf sovereign. It was much more intense than when an ordinary sovereign had fallen. A titled supreme martial artist had fallen. Morongyu stopped and exchanged glances with Nuwa and Wushuang. Then, he saw the confusion in each other's eyes. Aside from the two titled sovereigns, there was only Sovereign Zhen Wu and the others in the saint's world. However, hadn't Supreme True Martial and the others left with heaven? Why did someone else die? Could he have been killed by the heavens? This thought flashed through Morongyu's mind. This thought wasn't impossible. After all, heaven was too heavily injured. It was highly possible that he had killed a titled supreme martial artist and devoured their energy to heal his own injuries. However, after this thought appeared, Morongyu's face darkened. Of course, he didn't pity those titled supreme martial artists. Even if those titled supreme martial artists weren't killed by heaven, they would be killed by Morongyu in the end. Morongyu was worried that if heaven killed the titled supreme martial artists to heal his own injuries, then his injuries would be healed in a short period of time. At that time, it would be a disaster for Morongyu. However, Morongyu didn't have any other choice. There wasn't any item that contained a large amount of energy for him to refine. As for the remaining origin energy of the saint's world, there wasn't even a trace of it. He could only counter soldiers with arms and water with an earth weir. Morongyu brought Wushuang and Nuwa back to the primeval world. At this moment, the primeval world was already empty. Most of the people had already retreated back to the divine world. Therefore, it didn't matter if Morongyu came back later. Even if Supreme Martial Artist and the rest controlled the primeval world, they couldn't control many of Shenzhen's disciples. However, while Supreme Martial Artist and the rest were easy to deal with, heaven wasn't. With heaven's ability, even if Shenzhen's people hid in the mortal world, he could still destroy the entire mortal world with a single thought. Shenzhen wouldn't be able to avoid it. Only by increasing his own cultivation could he fight against heaven. However, how could he increase his own cultivation? On the second day after Morongyu returned to the primeval world, Heaven's order came down. All the titled supreme martial artists were to rush back to the Heaven Mountain Range within a day. This Heaven Mountain Range was formed by Heaven's divine ability after he returned. Those who missed the deadline would be killed without mercy. When this news spread throughout the Saints' world, all the titled supreme martial artists took action and rushed back to the extraterrestrial world as fast as they could. They didn't dare to disobey Heaven's order. Otherwise, they would be killed by Heaven. However, they weren't willing to return to the extraterrestrial world. This was because they vaguely knew their fate. Legend had it that when Heaven returned from the reincarnation cycle, he killed a supreme martial artist with the title of Supreme Martial Artist. The one he killed was Supreme Martial Artist Phoenix. That unlucky Supreme Martial Artist. Back then, in Heaven's palace, under the gaze of Supreme Martial Artist and the rest, Heaven killed Supreme Martial Artist Phoenix. Then, he swallowed and refined Supreme Martial Artist Phoenix. Supreme Martial Artist and the rest, who had always been strong, were shocked and furious when they saw this scene. However, none of them dared to make a sound. Facing the heavens, they all felt powerless. As long as Heaven wanted, they would be killed. They didn't even have the thought of resisting. It was really lamentable. It was said that there was only one reason why Heaven summoned these supreme martial artists back to the extraterrestrial world. He wanted to kill them and swallow them to heal himself. Because Heaven failed to break through the reincarnation cycle, he was heavily injured. He wanted to recover his injured body by swallowing them. The supreme martial artists were naturally shocked and furious. However, under the might of Heaven, those supreme martial artists obediently returned to the extraterrestrial world. They were afraid that they would be killed by Heaven. Only Murong Yu, Shenzhen's supreme martial artists, and Wushuang and Niuhua didn't return to the extraterrestrial world. Since the outcome was death, why didn't they fight a great battle with Heaven before dying? Why did they die in such a cowardly manner? If he could devour all of these supreme being powerful beings, the injuries of Heaven might be able to recover. When that time came, he would definitely attack Murong Yu. This gave Murong Yu a lot of pressure. Therefore, he didn't stay in the primordial world. Instead, he started to travel in the holy world. He wanted to find more items that contained great power and the holy world's source. However, although the holy world was big, there were too few items that contained great power. Along the way, Murong Yu encountered a few, but the power was still too little. After refining the Ash Wolf Supreme Martial Artist's supreme weapon and his body, Murong Yu's strength was stuck at the peak of a 2-star Supreme Martial Artist. He couldn't take the final step to become a 3-star Supreme Martial Artist. As for the source of the holy world, he didn't even see its shadow. Old sage, you really can't sense the remaining source of the holy world? Murong Yu asked the old sage in his heart. Right now, Murong Yu had already circulated the source of the holy world to the maximum. Covered a third of the entire holy world. In no time at all, Murong Yu had already traveled through a third of the holy world. However, he still didn't find anything. The remaining 2 source of the holy world could be in the extraterrestrial world, or in the God world or immortal world. The old sage was helpless. He couldn't sense the other source of the holy world. God world or immortal world. These places had long been under Murong Yu's control. There were no items that contained a huge amount of power. This was certain. However, Murong Yu didn't know whether there was a source of the holy world or not. After all, once the source of the holy world was hidden, even if he held it in his hand, he wouldn't be able to tell that it was the source of the holy world. Thus, Murong Yu suppressed his cultivation and returned to the God world, immortal world, and even the mortal world. However, he still couldn't find the source of the holy world. Then, there was only one place left. It was the extraterrestrial world. If there wasn't any source of the holy world in the extraterrestrial world, Murong Yu suspected that the shattered source of the holy world had rushed out of the holy world and appeared in the endless starry sky. Thus, Morong Yu entered the extraterrestrial world again. After a round of searching, he almost searched the entire extraterrestrial world. However, he still didn't find anything. Old Sage, the remaining two source of the holy world, couldn't have really rushed out of the extraterrestrial world, right? Morong Yu had a bad feeling. Without the source of the holy world, and without an item containing a huge amount of energy for him to refine, how could he fight against the heavens? Do I have to refine the weapon fragment? Morong Yu took out the weapon fragment and took a look. The weapon fragment didn't look any different from when he first saw it. Morong Yu could naturally sense how terrifying the energy contained in the weapon fragment was. Once he refined it, he might be able to raise his cultivation to the level of a 9-star supreme. However, he didn't think he had the ability to refine the weapon fragment. It's impossible to rush out of the extraterrestrial world. Now, there's only one possibility. The remaining two source of the holy world might have been suppressed by the heavens. The old sage's voice sounded in Morong Yu's mind. Morong Yu rolled his eyes. You can't be asking me to snatch the two source of the holy world from the heavens, right? If I had the strength, why would I need the source of the holy world? I'll just kill the heavens. Snatching and stealing are two completely different concepts, the old sage said indifferently. Morong Yu rolled his eyes, but in the end, he still flew towards the Heaven Mountain range. Now, this was the only way. Boom! While flying towards the Heaven Mountain range, Morong Yu's body violently trembled. Following that, a massive wave of faith power poured into his body through the air like an ocean. The power of faith energy skyrocketed once again. The holy world is unified again. A smile appeared on Morong Yu's face. At the same time that he left the primeval world, Shenzhen made his move again. With Sun Feiyong and the others' strength as sovereigns, the sacred sect was able to easily unify the saints' world once again without any sovereigns. Chapter 1824. After unifying the holy world, Shenzhen built more statues of Morong Yu in the holy world. The more statues there were, the more power of faith Morong Yu received. Originally, there were many sages in the holy world who were Morong Yu's followers. However, after heaven went to transcend reincarnation, those supremes returned. Using their great magic, they had forcefully changed the faith of many saints. Now they only recovered their faith. Therefore, Morong Yu's power of faith increased by many times. Although Morong Yu was stronger, there was still a huge gap between him and heaven. Therefore, Morong Yu still wanted to seize the source of the holy world. Soon, Morong Yu appeared outside the Tsangtian mountain range. The current Tsangtian mountain range was built on top of the original Tsangtian mountain range. However, the scale was much smaller than the original Tsangtian mountain range. After all, the original Tsangtian mountain range was formed by heaven after countless years. Now it was just a rough formation. Rumble, just as Morong Yu appeared outside the Tsangtian mountain range, the heaven and earth vision appeared again. It wasn't someone who became a Supremes, but a Supremes who died. It wasn't a titled Supremes, but an ordinary titled Supremes. In fact, Morong Yu had already guessed that this fallen Supreme Being was most likely slain by the heavens. However, this had nothing to do with Morong Yu. With a thought, Morong Yu became invisible. Then, he took a step forward and rushed into the Tsangtian mountain range. He was careful. He had no choice. Morong Yu was going to steal the source of the holy world that might be suppressed by heaven. He couldn't let heaven find out in advance. Rumble, during this process, the heaven and earth vision appeared one after another. Morong Yu did a rough count. In just half a day, the number of Supremes that had died had reached 10. Moreover, they were all high-level Supremes. Of course, those titled Supremes weren't killed. This confirmed Heaven's guess that Heaven was killing Supremes and using their power to recover from his injuries. However, Heaven's continuous killing of Supremes was actually very useful to Morong Yu. By now, the news of the Supremes and ruler had spread throughout the holy world. Even the sage-to-be knew how cruel and merciless heaven was. He slaughtered those supremes like they were chickens and ducks just to heal his injuries. What if heaven couldn't recover after killing all the supremes? If that was the case, would he sacrifice the entire saints' world to heal him? All sorts of guesses were made, and the sovereign was viewed as an unpardonable villain. On the other hand, Morong Yu was a great hero for bravely opposing the ruler. In comparison, more people became Morong Yu's believers, allowing him to obtain even more power of faith. Morong Yu's strength had grown even stronger. Very soon, Morong Yu entered the depths of heaven's mountain range. He didn't see heaven. Instead, he saw the supremes who were supposed to be high and mighty. However, those supremes weren't in a good state. Each and every one of them had their strength sealed, and they were all locked up in the various halls. Morong Yu couldn't help but feel sad for them. As one of the most powerful experts in the holy world, they were like pigs that had been reared. They were trapped and waiting to be slaughtered. At this moment, heaven no longer continued to kill supreme beings. Or perhaps it needed time to refine them after killing a certain number of them. Morong Yu didn't care about these suppressed supremes. What did they have to do with him? Morong Yu walked past them and arrived outside Heaven's palace. Originally, Heaven's palace had been devoured by Morong Yu. It was a half-true ruler's weapon. Although this palace looked exactly the same as before, it was just an ordinary supreme's weapon. There were still hundreds of millions of formations and restrictions outside the palace. However, these couldn't stop Morong Yu at all. He shuttled through the formations and restrictions as if he was in a place where no one could stop him. These formations and restrictions still couldn't stop Morong Yu. Very soon, Morong Yu entered the palace. At this moment, Morong Yu was even more careful. At the same time, he had raised his strength to the maximum. The moment he was discovered by heaven, he would unleash his strongest attack. However, it was obvious that Morong Yu was being overly careful. At this moment, heaven was sitting cross-legged on the throne. He raised his head and looked at the side of the hall. Near the throne, there were dozens of skeletons that had lost their luster. Morong Yu knew that those skeletons should be the skeletons of the supremes that were killed by heaven. Normally, even if the supremes were dead, their skeletons would be filled with five-colored radiance. No matter how much time passed, they wouldn't change. But these supremes who were killed by the firmament, because their powers were completely devoured by the firmament, they became like mortals. Under the erosion of time, they would turn into ashes very quickly. Dull sounds that sounded like beans being fried kept coming out from heaven's body. However, although this guy was healing himself, he was looking at the other side attentively. What was he looking at so intently? Morong Yu was puzzled. He followed heaven's gaze and looked over. Boom! When Morong Yu saw what heaven was looking at, his entire body couldn't help but tremble. What was heaven looking at? He was looking at an ancient word. That ancient word was completely different from the words in the holy world. However, Morong Yu could still recognize the word with a single glance. That was because that word was the same as the 9 symbolic words that Morong Yu had cultivated. It was the last word of the 9 symbolic words, Qian. Lin Bing Do Zhe Jie Zhen Lai Zai Qian. Other than the Qian formula, Morong Yu had already cultivated the other 8 ancient words. During this period of time, Morong Yu had been searching for the source of the holy world and items that contained a huge amount of energy. At the same time, he was also searching for the last word of the 9 symbolic word. However, there was no news at all. Legend had it that if one could gather all the 9 symbolic words, they would have unimaginable abilities and achievements. Now, the last word had appeared in front of him. As long as he comprehended this word, Morong Yu would have learned all the 9 symbolic words. It turned out that the Qian formula, that Morong Yu couldn't find for a long time, had already been taken by heaven. Morong Yu heaved a sigh of relief. At this moment, he couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. If heaven had fallen in the process of breaking through reincarnation, then the Qian formula would have disappeared in the endless chaos along with heaven's fall. It was probably impossible for Morong Yu to gather all of it. We must get our hands on it. Morong Yu's face was resolute. He was very curious about the huge changes and surprises that would occur after the 9 symbolic words were gathered. However, how would he get the Qian formula? Although the Qian formula was floating below the wall of the palace, there were hundreds of millions of formations and restrictions placed on it. Once the Qian formula was touched, those formations and restrictions would be triggered. Once there was any movement, heaven would definitely react and take action immediately. Although Morong Yu had the ability to protect himself, it was impossible for him to get the Qian formula from heaven. If he couldn't get it this time, then there wouldn't be another chance. Even the source of the holy world couldn't be stolen. Forcefully taking this path wouldn't work. Morong Yu gritted his teeth. Now there was only one choice left. Cultivate. That's right, he wanted to cultivate in heaven's palace. As long as he succeeded in cultivating the Qian formula, he would be able to leave. Even if he was killed by heaven, he would still have a chance to be revived. He could do it. Morong Yu immediately sat cross-legged in the void and began to comprehend the Qian formula. However, although he was invisible, he was more careful than before. Therefore, heaven was also comprehending the Qian formula. His divine thought covered the entire Qian word. Morong Yu's divine thought didn't dare to touch it at all. If he accidentally touched heaven's divine thought, he would be discovered by heaven. By then, Morong Yu would definitely be in for a tragedy. Therefore, Morong Yu didn't extend his divine thought. Instead, he just looked at the Qian formula and comprehended it. Morong Yu had already obtained the 8 words of the 9 symbolic words. Therefore, Morong Yu was determined to get this word. Moreover, he wasn't worried that heaven would be the first to comprehend it. Not long after, heaven, who had been comprehending the Qian formula, suddenly opened his eyes. Then, he reached out his hand and grabbed the void. In the next moment, more than 10 supremes who were at the advanced stage were caught by heaven and brought into the palace. These supremes were terrified. After entering the palace, they all started to beg for mercy. Some of them even knelt on the ground and kowtowed to heaven in an attempt to get heaven to let them go. However, in the eyes of heaven, they were just pigs that heaven reared. How could heaven let them go? Therefore, heaven swallowed all of them coldly. The damage that heaven's sky had suffered was simply too severe. The best way to heal was to devour these extremely strong sovereigns. Their immense power was part of the reason. Another reason was their cultivation comprehension. Morong Yu chose to turn a blind eye to this with an indifferent expression. These supremes didn't deserve sympathy. Even if they were supremes of the human race. These supremes had wanted to kill Morong Yu and Shengzhen. They were Morong Yu's enemies. Even if heaven didn't kill them, Morong Yu would kill them sooner or later. However, Morong Yu felt that it was a pity. If he could kill these supreme beings and refine them, his strength would be able to break through to a 3-star supreme being, or even a 4-star supreme being. As time passed, Morong Yu's comprehension deepened. He had already formed a connection with the Qian formula. And in this process, at least hundreds of supreme beings were slain by the firmament. This made Morong Yu's heart ache. On this day, Morong Yu, who was comprehending the Qian formula, suddenly opened his eyes. It's done. At the same time, the Qian word, which had been calm all this while, suddenly exploded with a blinding light. Chapter 1825. Chang Tian had always been there. He was either devouring the sovereign's power to heal his injuries or comprehending the forwarding formula. The forwarding formula was discovered by Chang Tian during the process of breaking through reincarnation. Chang Tian didn't know what the ancient word meant. However, he knew that the ancient word was extraordinary from the first time he saw it. Therefore, although he didn't know what it was, he still used his divine power to imprison it and suppress it in his body. Later on, when he was breaking through reincarnation, he studied the forwarding formula. Although he didn't make much progress, he more or less gained something. Especially when he failed to break through the reincarnation cycle, the ancient character erupted with a terrifying power and saved him. It was because of the ancient word that he managed to keep his life even though he failed to break through reincarnation. If it wasn't for the ancient word, Chang Tian would have died long ago, and he wouldn't have just been severely injured. Because of this, the heavens knew even more about the preciousness of this ancient character. Therefore, when he was healing himself, he was comprehending the ancient word. When he met Murong-yu, Chang Tian really wanted to kill Murong-yu and take over Murong-yu's body. This was because Murong-yu's strength had caused him to feel apprehensive. Murong-yu had already refined 1/3 of the Holy World's origin source. He was almost on par with Chang Tian. Chang Tian was severely injured, and he would need a long time to recover to his peak. By then, Murong-yu's power would probably be above his. However, his soul wasn't in the right state to take over. However, if it was in the past, he would definitely kill Murong-yu. Even if he couldn't take over, he would seal Murong-yu's body first. However, Chang Tian didn't make a move. Why was this so? Because of the forwarding formula. Chang Tian could feel that if he could comprehend the forwarding formula, his power would definitely skyrocket. Not to mention killing Murong-yu. He was confident that he could even break through reincarnation. Therefore, he didn't make a move on Murong-yu. But now, the ancient character was suddenly emitting such an intense light? One had to understand that ever since he obtained the ancient character and failed to break through the cycle of reincarnation, the ancient character erupted with a ball of dazzling light and power that wrapped around him, protecting his life. During the rest of the time, there was nothing strange about the ancient characters. What was going on? Heaven was sure that the ancient word did not change because of him. But what was the cause of this abnormality? Soon, Heaven knew what the reason was. The ancient characters that were originally suppressed by him on the wall broke out a dazzling light, then they broke free from the restraint of his hundreds of millions of arrays and enchantments and flew straight up. Heaven was shocked and reached out to grab the ancient character. However, the speed of the ancient characters was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it had already passed his hand and rushed to the other side of the palace. Bang! The ancient character seemed to have collided with something, and a dull, loud sound was heard. Then, a figure appeared in Heaven's sight. Murong-yu. When he saw Murong-yu, who was sitting cross-legged in the void, Heaven couldn't help but roar angrily. It wasn't only because Murong-yu had dared to barge into his palace, but also because the ancient character had rushed into Murong-yu's body. This was like snatching food from a tiger's mouth. Heaven was shocked and furious. He roared and reached out his hand. He unleashed his most powerful attack and attacked Murong-yu. Murderous intent filled the air. He had to kill Murong-yu today. However, at this moment, an extremely vast and powerful aura suddenly erupted from Murong-yu's body. With a bang, Murong-yu's body shook violently. In the next moment, Heaven saw 9 different ancient characters erupt from Murong-yu's body. In the end, it formed a circle around Murong-yu and began to slowly rotate. Each of the ancient characters gave off a dazzling light. An ancient and powerful aura erupted continuously and shook the heavens and the earth. Swoosh! Heaven's attack was about to hit Murong-yu's body. At this moment, the 9 ancient characters gave off an even more dazzling light. At the same time, he appeared in front of Murong-yu in a flash and slammed into the hand coming from the sky. Rumble! A dazzling light erupted. A terrifying power erupted, and the gigantic hand of Heaven was sent flying away. Thud, thud, thud! Heaven spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, he was forced to retreat over 100 steps before he could stabilize himself. On the other hand, Murong-yu was completely fine. He was still floating in the void. However, the light from the 9 ancient characters dimmed significantly. At this moment, they had returned to Murong Yu's side and continued to revolve around him. 9 ancient characters. When Heaven saw everything clearly, he was envious. Heaven could already sense the value of the word forwarding, let alone the 9 ancient characters. Although he did not recognize the ancient characters, he knew their estimated value. Kill. Heaven's killing intent surged. He wanted to kill Murong Yu and obtain the 9 ancient characters. Therefore, he roared in his heart. He took a step forward and attacked Murong Yu again. At the same time, Murong Yu abruptly opened his eyes. However, he only glanced at Heaven. Then, he tore open the void with his bare hands and charged in. Where do you think you're going? Heaven was furious and his hand followed closely. However, Murong Yu had already disappeared without a trace. Perhaps he could catch up to Murong Yu when he was at his peak. However, he definitely could not now. Therefore, the many honorable martial artists who were imprisoned by Heaven heard Heaven's furious roar. After a while, a rain of blood fell from the holy world again. Obviously, Heaven was venting his anger on those honorable martial artists. However, all of this had nothing to do with Murong Yu. At this moment, Murong Yu had already entered the Hichu Luoshu and was undergoing a transformation. Rumble, the realm that he had been unable to break through for a long time, finally broke through at this moment. He rushed to the 3-star honorable martial artist realm. However, the massive amount of energy continued to surge into his body, increasing his strength. He was advancing toward the 4-star honorable martial artist realm. Apart from that, Murong Yu's improvement in other aspects was also terrifying. His combat strength had increased tremendously. Among them, the changes in the 9 syllables were the most obvious. After cultivating the 8 ancient characters, Murong Yu could use each ancient character as a weapon to attack his opponent. However, each ancient character could only unleash the power that it contained. For example, the swordsman formula could only unleash the power of the soul. Moreover, 2 or more ancient characters could not be combined together. However, ever since Murong Yu comprehended the last character, the 9 characters automatically combined together. It was just like how he blocked Heaven's attack earlier. This was not an active action by Murong Yu, but a passive defense. After encountering a powerful attack, the 9 syllables formula was automatically activated and blocked the attack. Although Heaven was heavily injured and his strength was weakened, a dominator was still a dominator. The 9 syllables formula easily broke Heaven's attack. Moreover, it was automatically activated. If it was activated automatically, it would have an even more terrifying defensive ability. Most importantly, Murong Yu had just comprehended the forward formula. As his comprehension deepened, the defensive ability of the 9 syllables formula would definitely increase. This was just the defensive aspect. The 9 syllables formula still had offensive aspect. Moreover, its offensive aspects were even more terrifying. Soul attacks, spatial attacks, time attacks, concealment, divination, increasing combat strength, and so on. The power of each ancient character was blended into it. If Murong Yu were to attack with the combination of the 9 ancient characters, then the attack would possess the same power as the 9 characters. If he was hit by such an attack, it would definitely not feel good, right? This was just the offensive and defensive aspect. It was just a small surprise that the 9 syllables formula gave to Murong Yu. However, Murong Yu did not believe that this was the so-called huge surprise of the 9 syllables formula. However, other than the increase in strength, offense, and defense, Murong Yu had not discovered any other surprises. However, Murong Yu knew that there would definitely be surprises. However, perhaps because he had not fully comprehended it, he was unable to discover any more surprises. Therefore, Murong Yu continued to comprehend the 9 syllables formula, especially the forward formula that he had just obtained. In the process of comprehending, Murong Yu realized that his comprehension ability was getting stronger and stronger. Therefore, he realized that the forward formula's ability was to increase comprehension ability. This was a good thing for Murong Yu. The higher one's comprehension ability, the faster one would comprehend. At the same time, one would comprehend more things. And the more things one obtained, the stronger one's comprehension ability would be. As this cycle continued, Murong Yu's ability and formlessness would become stronger and stronger. Under the acceleration of time, who knew how much time had passed? On this day, Murong Yu, who was comprehending the forward formula and the other 9 syllables formula, suddenly felt his divine telekinesis tremble. In the next moment, before he could react, his divine telekinesis had already spread out. In a flash, it covered the entire sacred world, the God world, the immortal world, and the mortal world. That's right, it covered all these areas in an instant. Everything in these worlds appeared in front of Murong Yu's eyes with incomparable clarity. As long as Murong Yu was willing, he could appear anywhere in these worlds. The sacred world and even the outer realms were covered by Murong Yu's divine telekinesis. Under the envelopment of his divine telekinesis, Murong Yu grasped the life and death of any life in these worlds. As long as he was willing, any life could be instantly exterminated. Of course, it was still a little difficult to exterminate heaven. This is the ability of a sovereign. Could it be that I have reached the sovereign realm? Murong Yu's heart trembled, and he was inexplicably shocked. His realm had only reached the 5-star supreme martial artist realm, and he had not reached the sovereign realm. However, Murong Yu's soul had broken through and reached the 9-star level. The 8-star level corresponded to the supreme martial artist realm, and the 9-star level was naturally the sovereign realm. His soul had reached the sovereign realm. Chapter 1826. 9-Star Soul. Murong Yu's divine sense roamed the entire holy world. Although he had concealed his aura, the supreme aura still shook the world. Countless lives were awed by it. What Murong Yu didn't know was that when his soul reached the level of 9 stars and entered the ruler realm, the sculptures he had placed all over the holy realm, God realm, immortal realm, and mortal realm were naturally enveloped in a 7-colored light. Although the rainbow light wasn't very strong, the statues were surrounded by rainbow holy light. A supreme aura was constantly being emitted from the statue, shaking the heavens and earth, causing people to involuntarily feel a sense of reverence. Rainbow light. One had to know that supremes could only emit rainbow light from their heads. The rainbow light was naturally the sovereign realm. At this time, news about supremes and sovereigns had already spread in the holy world. Therefore, when they saw Murong Yu's statues being enveloped by the rainbow light, everyone believed that Murong Yu had broken through to the sovereign realm. The so-called sovereign realm was the sovereign realm. Therefore, countless people became more and more devout to Murong Yu. Some people who weren't Murong Yu's followers naturally became Murong Yu's followers, causing Murong Yu's power of faith to skyrocket. Originally, the entire holy world was enveloped by blood clouds and blood rain, and the smell of blood was everywhere. However, after Murong Yu's breakthrough, the blood clouds seemed to have suddenly disappeared. They were dispersed by the rainbow light, and the holy world returned to its original clear sky. Just as Murong Yu's soul reached the sovereign stage, the high heavens in the outer realm began to laugh. After devouring all the supremes, his strength had finally recovered, and he had even improved. However, the price was that other than Shenzhen, Niuhua Wushuang, and a few other supremes, all the other supremes were killed. This included supremes True Marshal, Xuetao, and other super experts. In other words, there were less than 10 supremes in the holy world now. They were definitely top experts. There's only one supremes in the holy world. That one person is me. Murong Yu, even if your soul has broken through to the paragon level, you are still not my match. As long as I devour and possess you, I'll be able to successfully break through the cycle of reincarnation. Cold light flickered in Song Tian's eyes. As he spoke, he took a step forward and flew into the distance. In principle, there could only be one overlord in the sacred world. This was because the sacred world only had one sacred world origin. Only those who had obtained the acknowledgement of the origin source of the sacred world had the qualifications to become a ruler. But now, the source energy of the sacred world had been split into 9 parts. Murong Yu had obtained 3 parts, while Heaven had obtained 4 parts. Therefore, in theory, their strength or cultivation could all break through to the sovereign realm. However, strictly speaking, Murong Yu and Chang Tian weren't real sovereigns. They were only pseudo-sovereigns. Only by killing the other party, and seizing the source energy of the holy world that the other party had refined, as well as the other 2 source energies whose whereabouts were unknown, could one become a true sovereign. Of course, these 2 people could also exist at the same time. However, a mountain couldn't contain 2 tigers. The 2 of them couldn't coexist peacefully. Moreover, even without this aspect, Song Tian wanted to seize Murong Yu's physical body. On the other hand, Murong Yu wanted to kill Song Tian. Only one of them could survive. 9-star soul. I didn't expect my soul to break through first this time. Murong Yu smiled as he felt the powerful energy coursing through him. Soul sages were stronger than ordinary sages. This could be seen from the fact that there weren't many soul sages in the sacred world. Murong Yu felt that with his current strength, he couldn't kill Song Tian. However, he definitely had the strength to fight him. After all, Song Tian was a ruler. Moreover, he was a ruler who had controlled the sacred world for countless years. He definitely had some special means to protect his life. As for Murong Yu, other than his soul, there was still a huge gap between his physical body and a ruler's strength. He didn't have much confidence in fighting against Song Tian. Of course, Murong Yu didn't have the intention to kill Song Tian now. Since he couldn't kill Song Tian now, he couldn't be bothered to do so. He might as well increase his strength before killing Song Tian. However, even though Murong Yu didn't have the intention to kill Song Tian now, it didn't mean that Song Tian didn't have the intention to kill him now. Murong Yu's divine will that covered the entire sacred world found Song Tian very quickly. At this moment, Song Tian was flying towards Murong Yu at an extremely fast speed. Murong Yu snorted coldly and his face turned gloomy. Since Song Tian wanted to die, what was he afraid of? Therefore, he walked out of the Hichu Luoshu and stood quietly in the sky outside the realm. He looked in the direction Song Tian was flying towards. Before long, Song Tian appeared in Murong Yu's line of sight. Song Tian stood not far away from Murong Yu and looked at Murong Yu with a terrifying cold light in his eyes. As expected of the chaotic celestial body, your talent is heaven-defying. You've already reached the ruler realm in such a short time. To be honest, your talent surprises me. If you were given more time, you would probably surpass me. Murong Yu sneered at the familiar yet unfamiliar face in front of him. Heavens, you must be regretting it right now, right? Are you regretting not killing me earlier? Your talent scares me. However, I don't regret it because you're still not my match. However, I can't wait any longer. The chaotic celestial body will be mine. Murong Yu just looked at Song Tian indifferently. You're too confident. Song Tian laughed. Murong Yu, don't think that you can control everything in the wooden house just because your soul has reached the ruler realm. Today, I'll show you who's the real ruler and who's the strongest in the holy world. That person is me. You, on the other hand, are merely an ant. I could easily crush you in the past, and I can do it now. Before he finished speaking, Song Tian had already taken a step forward. Suddenly, a terrifying aura swept toward Murong Yu like a torrent. Domain. The domain formed by 4/9 of the holy world's origin energy swept toward Murong Yu. A cold light flashed in Murong Yu's eyes. He burst out laughing and released 3/9 of his domain. Rumbled domains were originally formless and intangible. However, at this moment, they were like two gusts of wind that swept toward each other with Song Tian and Murong Yu as the starting point. In the blink of an eye, the two gusts of wind collided violently. Time seemed to stop at this moment. The next moment, an earth-shattering sound was heard. Rip! The void of the outer realm was directly torn apart. A huge black hole was forming rapidly. This was the result of the collision of the two forces that tore the void apart. The two domains shattered instantly. Murong Yu's entire domain collapsed. On the other hand, although Song Tian's soul was also shattered, there was still a quarter of it left. The winner was obvious. In the collision of the holy world's origin energy, Song Tian won. After all, Song Tian had 4/9 of the holy world's origin energy, while Murong Yu only had 3/9. Bang! Murong Yu's body was like an ancient sacred mountain that had crashed into it. A huge force came and sent him flying. Immediately, the clothes on the surface of his body were smashed into powder. However, when the force hit his body, Murong Yu's body shone with 5-colored sacred light. It was the light of a supreme weapon. A supreme weapon-level body? When Chang Tian saw the 5-colored holy light flickering on Murong Yu's body, his eyes couldn't help but light up. His face was filled with excitement. He had been the ruler of the holy world for many eras. During this time, he had spent a lot of time improving his physical body. However, he had been unable to break through to the supreme weapon level. It had been stuck at the chaotic ancestral weapon level. If I take over this body, I can improve it to the level of a ruler weapon? It is indeed a chaotic celestial body. Song Tian was overjoyed. This was because he had already regarded Murong Yu's body as his own. Of course, it was better for his own things to be stronger. Murong Yu's body shone with 5-colored sacred light, and it did not take long for the force to dissipate. However, when he saw Song Tian's overjoyed face, his face darkened. This body was still his and it would be his in the future. Why was this guy so happy? However, since this guy wanted to fight, then let's fight. Holy Soul Slash. Murong Yu immediately used his most powerful soul fighting skill. The speed of the Holy Soul Slash, which contained the power of faith, was unparalleled. When it was slashed out, it reached the top of Song Tian's head and slashed at his soul space. When he saw Murong Yu's attack, Song Tian looked disdainful. He curled his lips and even sneered. He did not block Murong Yu's soul slash. Instead, he sneered? What was going on? Murong Yu was a little depressed and curious at the same time. He was curious why Song Tian was so confident. Buzz. At this moment, the Holy Soul Slash had already entered Song Tian's soul space. However, Murong Yu only saw a ripple in the void near Song Tian's head and Song Tian's face turned pale. After that, there was no more after that. His soul attack was like a clay ox entering the sea, disappearing without a trace. His soul slash had failed? Murong Yu's face was filled with disbelief. This was the first time his soul slash had failed. Although there had been similar situations in the past, the other party had shattered his soul slash with a punch or forcefully blocked it. However, now there was only a ripple and there was no more after that? Haha, are you surprised? I knew that you were a soul dominator and I still came over? Do you know why your soul slash was useless against me? Do you know what my weapon of domination is? When Chang Tian saw the shock on Murong Yu's face, he burst into laughter, feeling extremely smug. Chapter 1827. While laughing, Chang Tian suddenly said something shocking. Murong Yu was shocked. Ruler's weapon. Every ruler only had one ruler's weapon. Just like how a sovereign's weapon was equivalent to a sovereign, a ruler's weapon would be equivalent to a ruler's weapon if it unleashed its full power. Even if it wasn't as strong as a real ruler, it was definitely stronger than a titled. In other words, if Chang Tian took out his ruler's weapon, his combat strength would be doubled. and Chang Tian's ruler's weapon was actually the ruler's soul's ruler's weapon. In other words, Chang Tian was now equivalent to a ruler of both cultivation and soul. His strength was definitely stronger than any sovereign's. Most importantly, because of the ruler's weapon, Murong Yu's soul attack was basically useless. His soul had reached the level of 9 stars, which meant that he had stepped into the ruler's realm. But at most, it was on par with Chang Tian's soul's ruler's weapon. It couldn't break through the ruler's weapon's defenses and kill Chang Tian's soul. In other words, one of Murong Yu's most powerful attacks, his soul attack, was completely useless. Murong Yu, are you shocked? Chang Tian was still laughing. 7-colored holy light suddenly flashed above his head. In the next moment, a holy weapon that emitted 7-colored holy light like a shield appeared above Chang Tian's head. This was Chang Tian's soul's ruler's weapon. At this moment, the soul's ruler's weapon spun slowly above Chang Tian's head. 7-colored holy light poured down and protected Chang Tian's entire body. Sensing the enormous aura, Murong Yu's pupils abruptly shrank. He roughly sensed it and compared it. Then, his face darkened. Although his soul attack was powerful, it might not be able to break through the shield's defenses and kill Chang Tian's soul. Chang Tian's ambition is really big. Murong Yu thought to himself. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Normally, after a ruler became a ruler, they would forge their own ruler's weapon. But they would only forge ordinary rulers' weapons because rulers' weapons of souls were very difficult to forge. After all, just like heaven, he wasn't a saint's soul at all. If he wanted to forge a soul sovereign armament, it would be tens of thousands of times more difficult than forging an ordinary sovereign armament. However, heaven's ambition was too great. He actually spent a lot of time crafting the soul dominator weapon. If there were 2 sovereigns in the sacred world, then heaven, who possessed the sovereign soul armament, would definitely be able to kill the other sovereign instantly. This was the power of a soul saint artifact. Murong Yu reckoned that aside from increasing his strength and increasing his chances of breaking through the cycle of reincarnation, the most likely reason for heaven's refinement of the soul saint was to prevent him from being killed. After all, he'd only been able to ascend to this position because he'd killed the previous sovereign. Chang Tian was extremely pleased with himself. He didn't refine the soul dominator armament to deal with Murong Yu. He just wanted to increase his own strength. However, he did not expect that he would be able to use it against Murong Yu today. If it wasn't for the sovereign soul weapon, it would have been difficult for heaven to deal with Murong Yu. After all, if they were both in the sovereign realm, the soul dominator could definitely kill other sovereigns instantly. It was because of the sovereign soul weapon that heaven knew that Murong Yu's soul had reached the sovereign realm and still came to kill him. He had nothing to fear. Die! Heaven suddenly roared and threw a punch at Murong Yu. If it was just based on physical strength and cultivation, Murong Yu was no match for heaven. Therefore, Murong Yu immediately retreated. However, heaven's cultivation had long reached the sovereign realm. His speed was far above Murong Yu's. With a boom, heaven's fist, which was as big as a mountain, appeared in front of Murong Yu out of thin air. It carried a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth as it rapidly attacked Murong Yu. Before the fist even arrived, the frightening aura it emitted already caused Murong Yu's skin to hurt. Even his soul started to tremble because of it. The power of a sovereign realm could definitely shatter a supreme weapon with a punch. Of course, Murong Yu was sure that heaven would not shatter his physical body. He would only shatter his soul. Time freeze. Murong Yu was definitely not a sitting duck. As he retreated, he had already used one of his most powerful attacks, the rules of time. Bang! However, heaven's strength was too terrifying. With a punch, the time freeze was shattered. It could not stop heaven's attack at all. Time reversal. After heaven's time freeze shattered, an even greater amount of time power enveloped heaven out of thin air. With a whoosh, firmament disappeared from Murong Yu's sight. time reversal was a success. Murong-yu was stunned at first. Then, he was overjoyed. However, before he could finish being happy, the void in front of him shattered. However, Chang Tian had already stepped out of the void with a furious look on his face. You can control the power of time? However, even so, you can't change the fact that you're going to die. Heaven roared and pounced on Murong-yu again. Murong-yu's heart sank. Although time reversal was effective, it did not even last for an instant. However, it seemed like such a short time was enough? Is that so? Let's do it again. Murong-yu sneered and attacked with the power of time again. However, this time, it was different from the previous time. This time, it was accompanied by the power of faith. Heaven sneered. After Murong-yu had time reversal and returned to the past, he had already released his power and filled the surrounding void. As such, Murong-yu's power of time could not send him back to the past. However, before he could finish being happy, the scene in front of him changed and Murong-yu was nowhere to be seen. It was not that Murong-yu had escaped. Instead, he was sent back to the past by time reversal. Heaven raised his head and roared. Both of his hands punched out repeatedly, blasting out in all directions. Kacha! Kacha! The power of time that Murong-yu had wrapped around him was shattered by his 2 to 3 punches. The scene in front of Heaven changed again, and he was back in the holy world when he reappeared. Kill him! Before Heaven could stand firm after returning to the holy world, he heard Murong-yu's roar. At the same time, an extremely dangerous aura shrouded his heart. A large expanse of rainbow-colored light that flickered with a dangerous aura shattered the void and smashed down toward the sky at lightning speed. A cold light flashed across Heaven's eyes, and he was even more furious. That was because he had seen clearly what was attacking him. It was 9 ancient words that were connected into a circle. The forwarding word that Murong-yu had snatched from him was among them. Putting aside the value of the ancient word, the fact that Murong-yu had snatched it from him was enough to make him furious. Swoosh! Chang Tian reached out his hand and grabbed the 9 ancient words that were connected into a circle. Didn't Murong-yu snatch an ancient word that was supposed to belong to him? If that was the case, then he would snatch all 9 ancient characters. In the blink of an eye, Heaven's hand had already grabbed onto the circle. Heaven was overjoyed and his hand was about to snatch the 9 ancient words back. However, at that moment the 9 ancient words suddenly burst out with a ball of rainbow-colored light. A terrifying power burst out from his body. After a loud explosion, the big hand that stretched out from Chang Tian was blown to pieces. As for the 9 ancient characters, they slammed down on Heaven's head with a swoosh. Soul attack. Power of space. Power of time. At that moment, Heaven felt a few different types of attacks. Moreover, the power of these attacks was extremely terrifying. If Heaven's head were to be struck, it would be smashed into smithereens. Chang Tian's face changed drastically as he retreated hastily. At the same time, the soul-dominating weapon that had been spinning slowly above his head went towards the 9 ancient words. Bang! After a loud bang, the 9 ancient words that had been connected were blown apart. They turned into 9 ancient words and smashed through the void. With a swoosh, they entered Murong-yu's mind. On the other side, Heaven's soul-dominating weapon was also blown away by the tremendous power. Saint Soul Slash. Opportunity knocks but once. Murong-yu seized the opportunity and raised his soul power to the maximum. Then, he mixed it with the power of faith and slashed at Heaven's soul. Buzz! Heaven's soul trembled violently and an aura of death instantly shrouded Heaven's heart. Heaven was shocked and furious. He immediately circulated his power to the maximum and rushed into the soul space to protect his soul. At the same time, he frantically controlled the soul-dominating weapon that had been blown away. Boom! The Saint's soul slashed down fiercely. The terrifying attack tore through Heaven's first layer of defense. His attack was transparent in front of the Saint's soul and could not stop the attack at all. The saint's soul slash was getting closer and closer to Heaven's soul. Heaven panicked. If his soul was hit, he would be killed even if he was a dominating weapon. Thus, he turned all of his power around to attack the saint's soul slash. At the same time, the soul-dominating weapon that had been blown away turned into a stream of light and shot back to protect Heaven's soul. However, Morongyu had finally gotten this opportunity. How could he miss it? The 9 syllables of truth attacked the soul-dominating weapon that had been shot back. At the same time, a black light shot out from Morongyu's body and smashed through the void. It slashed at Heaven's soul at a speed faster than the soul-dominating weapon. Weapon fragments. Originally, Heaven's heart was shrouded by an extremely strong aura of death. Now, the aura of death had increased by tens of thousands of times. Heaven's shock was no small matter. Chapter 1828. Chang Tian was busy dealing with Morongyu's soul attack, and his soul dominator weapon was sent flying by Morongyu's 9 syllables of truth, so he did not have the time to defend himself. At this moment, Morongyu took out the weapon fragment. The weapon fragment was Morongyu's most frightening trump card at the moment. Ordinary supreme weapons would be shattered with a single touch. Especially after Morongyu's breakthrough, the power of the weapon fragment was even more terrifying. Morongyu even felt that if his blade landed on the ruler's armament, a corner of the ruler's armament would be blown away. In fact, if Morongyu was even stronger, then even a ruler's armament would have been shattered in one strike. Morongyu did not take out the weapon fragment suddenly, but he had been waiting for the opportunity to take out the weapon fragment. Chang Tian was shocked. He knew that if he could not block the light shadow, he would definitely die. At this moment, the ruler weapon was still far away, and he could not defend himself in time. What could he do? Domain. Suppress it. Chang Tian roared angrily. He pushed all the origin energy of the saint's world to the limit in a single instance, forming a medium-sized domain. Afterwards, it rapidly pressed down on the black streak of light. At the same time, his body flashed, and he shot backward at an extremely fast speed. During this process, he clapped his hands, and terrifying waves of energy constantly spewed out from his palms, tearing the sky and splitting the earth, and fiercely attacking the weapon fragment. Spatial imprisonment. Time freeze. Saint Soul Slash. Heavenly King Great Sage Technique. After taking out the weapon fragment, Morongyu's attack did not stop at all. Great Sage techniques and ultimate moves were constantly spewed out, covering the sky and earth, and bombarding Chang Tian violently. At this moment, Morongyu's first Saint Soul Slash finally broke through the Heavenly King's power, and slashed on Chang Tian's soul. Although most of the power had been destroyed, even a trace of the attack slashed on the soul. Although Chang Tian's soul was strong, he was not a soul saint. Without the protection of the power, he appeared naked in front of Morongyu. Although Chang Tian's soul dodged in time, he was still hit in the end. Even though he wasn't killed, Heaven still snorted out coldly in pain as his face turned pale white. A corner of his soul had been cut off. Although it was not serious, it still affected Chang Tian's strength. In a battle between experts, a small impact could affect the entire battle. The power of the domain directly suppressed the weapon fragment. Originally, Chang Tian wanted to suppress the weapon fragment, but at this moment the weapon fragment's power. First, the weapon fragment, the weapon's first, the weapon's burst a burst with a burst Chang Tian's soul power that was suppressing the weapon fragment was directly shattered. On the other hand, the weapon fragment was still extremely violent. First, it shook slightly in the void, then it charged toward Chang Tian at an even faster speed than before. Morongyu was slightly stunned, and a look of shock appeared on his face. Originally, he already had a preliminary control over the weapon fragment, so when he used the weapon fragment, he did not need to expend too much power. However, at this moment, an extremely terrifying devouring power burst out from the weapon fragment. Before he could react, all the power in his body, including his soul power, had been sucked dry in one gulp. Fast. Extremely fast. The weapon fragment's speed was so fast that even Murong Yu's divine telekinesis could not capture its trajectory. After devouring all of Murong Yu's power, the weapon fragment's burst of power even made Murong Yu, who was half its owner, tremble in fear. At the same time, this terrifying power had already enveloped the entire holy world. The void was shattering, and the endless mountain range was trembling. Everything was as if the end of the world had arrived. The terrifying pressure suppressed the entire holy world, the divine world, the immortal world, and all the other living beings involuntarily prostrated themselves on the ground. In fact, Murong Yu even realized that the entire holy world was trembling violently under the power of the weapon fragment, as if it was on the verge of shattering. Murong Yu was shocked. What was the origin of this weapon fragment? It was just a palm-sized weapon fragment, but the power it unleashed was almost enough to destroy the holy world? Murong Yu did not doubt that if this weapon fragment really wanted to destroy the holy world, it would not be difficult at all. However, he did not want the holy world to be destroyed. In the current holy world, even Chang Tian had not broken through the cycle of reincarnation. Once the saints' world was destroyed, all of them would follow the saints' world. They would be as dead as they could be. What? How is this possible? Chang Tian could not help but roar when he felt the terrifying power of the weapon fragment. This power was just too strong. Chang Tian did not even have the heart to fight back. One could only imagine how terrifying the weapon fragment was. Murong Yu could only watch as the shard of the weapon pierced through Chang Tian's forehead and exited from the back of his head, bringing with it a large amount of blood. There was only a shallow wound on Chang Tian's head, but it was extremely hideous and could not be healed. What shocked and surprised Murong Yu the most was that although Chang Tian's eyes were filled with anger and his face was filled with indignation, however, his life force was rapidly disappearing. "I'm indignant." Heaven roared furiously. Then, that tall figure came crashing down like a mountain. At the same time, blood clouds and blood rain covered the holy world once again. In fact, there were even loud roars between heaven and earth, as if there was a sorrowful wail. This was a phenomenon of heaven and earth that did not occur after the fall of an honorable being. Chang Tian was dead. Looking at Chang Tian's corpse in front of him, Murong Yu's eyes were filled with disbelief. Chang Tian, the ruler, died just like that? If there was no phenomenon of heaven and earth, Murong Yu would not believe that Chang Tian was killed just like that. However, even though there was a phenomenon of heaven and earth, Murong Yu still could not believe that Chang Tian died just like that. This guy was the strongest person in the holy world. Murong Yu knew that he would eventually kill Chang Tian. However, this was not the time. He was still too weak and did not have the ability to kill Chang Tian at all. Weapon fragment. Murong Yu took out the weapon fragment that turned into a stream of light and entered his body after killing Chang Tian. The weapon fragment did not change much from before. It was almost exactly the same. If there was a change, it would be that the weapon fragment was now brighter than before. Murong Yu tried to control the weapon fragment once. He realized that his control over the weapon fragment had increased. Naturally, the power of the weapon fragment was also stronger than before. Killing a titled honorable being was not a problem. However, if he wanted to kill a ruler, he still did not have the ability to do so. Murong Yu looked at the weapon fragment in his hand seriously. However, he was thinking about the background of this master. How could it be so terrifying? The reason why he killed Chang Tian just now was because the weapon fragment acted on its own. It seemed to have been provoked and directly sucked all of Murong Yu's power, including his soul power, dry. Then, it exploded with a terrifying power that almost destroyed the entire holy world and killed Chang Tian. That must be it. Although the weapon fragment was only left with the tip of the blade, it was extremely arrogant and did not allow anyone to provoke it. Chang Tian wanted to use the source of the holy world to suppress it, and this angered this master. Therefore, this master unleashed its power and killed Chang Tian. Murong Yu thought to himself. He was pretty close to the truth. However, the more he thought about it, the more curious he was about the level of the weapon fragment. The weapon fragment was definitely something used by the supreme existence of the extraterrestrial civilization. However, why did it fall into the holy world? Moreover, just the tip of the blade had such terrifying power. What if it was in its complete form? How terrifying would its power be? How could such a terrifying weapon fragment be destroyed? Then how terrifying was the strength of the person who destroyed the weapon fragment? An expert of that level was definitely stronger than a ruler. However, wasn't the realm above a ruler the primal chaos controller? Could there be other realms? Were there even stronger existences? Like the Sun Monarch, what level of existence did he belong to in the extraterrestrial civilization? For a moment, Murong Yu's heart was filled with boundless battle intent. He wanted to break through reincarnation and leave the holy world to travel to the extraterrestrial civilization. Perhaps only those people were truly immortal. Murong Yu shook his head. Those were his goals, but they were still too far away from him. He had to become the true ruler of the holy world and break through reincarnation before he had the right to leave the holy world. Otherwise, everything would be just fleeting clouds. He shook those unrealistic thoughts out of his head and put the weapon fragment back into his body. Then, he looked at Chang Tian's corpse and his soul dominator weapon. If I refine Chang Tian's corpse and his soul dominator weapon, my cultivation should be able to break through to the supremacy stage, right? Murong Yu thought to himself. He had already reached out his hand and was about to take Chang Tian's corpse and the soul dominator weapon away. However, at this moment, an extremely terrifying blade ray shot out from the depths of the void. It shattered billions of space-time and locked onto Murong Yu. It slashed down viciously. A cold killing intent flashed across Murong Yu's eyes. Although his strength had not fully recovered and his soul space was empty without any soul power, he was still in the holy world. However, other than Chang Tian, who else in the holy world could be his opponent? Even his physical body that had reached the level of a supreme weapon made him almost invincible in the holy world. With a cold snort, Murong Yu abruptly turned around. Aiming at the frightening blade ray, he ruthlessly threw a punch at it. Chapter 1829. Bang! Murong Yu's fist smashed the incoming blade ray into smithereens. Murong Yu turned around, his eyes flickering with a cold glint as he looked in the direction of the incoming blade. The blade radiance was very powerful and had reached the sovereign realm. However, Murong Yu didn't even need to use his strength to easily destroy the blade ray. After all, his physical body had reached the sovereign realm. Come out! Murong Yu was enraged. The millions of roots of the tree of life that were rooted in the endless primal chaos began to tremble violently. Every moment, they would devour a large amount of primal chaos energy and replenish Murong Yu's body. This allowed Murong Yu's depleted strength to recover rapidly. When he smashed the blade radiance with one punch, his strength had basically recovered to the peak. At this moment, he suddenly roared and reached out his hand, grabbing at the void in the distance. Even though his soul power had not recovered and his cultivation was far from the sovereign realm, he was at least not weaker than an ordinary titled sovereign. Therefore, Murong Yu's claw shattered billions of spacetime. Plop! In the depths of the void in the distance, a figure fell from the void. It was a young man in gray. At this moment, he was looking at Murong Yu in shock. His eyes were filled with disbelief. A mere one-star sovereign dares to attack me. You're courting death. When Murong Yu saw the young man in gray, his eyes were filled with a terrifying murderous intent. The young man in gray was a one-star sovereign. Most importantly, this person's aura was rather unstable. In other words, this person might have broken through to the sovereign realm recently. Then, there was only one possibility. This person was the mysterious person who had broken through to the sovereign realm before Murong Yu. This person was not killed by the sovereign realm? With a thought, Murong Yu came to a realization. Those people who were killed and swallowed by the firmament were sent there on their own accord because of the firmament's tyranny. As for this gray-robed youth, he had just broken through to the honorable realm and didn't know how terrifying heaven was. Naturally, he didn't go to Heaven Mountain Range. However, this guy actually dared to sneak an attack on Murong Yu? Could it be that he thought that Murong Yu could perish together with the heavens? Or perhaps even though Murong Yu had killed heaven, he was already at the end of his rope? Only then did he dare to make a move? No matter what, he had to die. Murong Yu's speed did not slow down at all, and he directly grabbed over. Wait a minute, I didn't mean to attack you, I was. The gray-clothed youth was almost scared to death by the terrifying power that erupted from Murong Yu. General Fan quickly retreated as he explained. Die. Murong Yu snorted coldly and pointed a finger at the gray-clothed youth. Bang. The one-star sovereign's entire body and soul were shattered into pieces, turning into a cloud of blood mist. He couldn't be any more dead. Right now, the one-star sovereign was just an ant in Murong Yu's eyes. In fact, Murong Yu didn't even need to make a move. He just needed to glare at him to death. After killing the gray-clothed youth, Murong Yu took a step forward and disappeared from the spot. In the following time, Murong Yu didn't immediately refine Heaven's body and his soul sovereign weapon. Instead, he carefully walked around the holy world and the outer region. Other than Shenzhen's honorable realm, there were no other honorable realm experts in the holy world. Of course, the heavenly demonists didn't count. As for whether there were still some honorable realm experts who were hiding and hadn't died, Murong Yu didn't know for now. At this moment, although Murong Yu hadn't become the true ruler of the holy world, he was already the ruler. Shenzhen's person flew up again. Moreover, this time, he openly established his sect in the holy world and no longer hid in the immemorial world. After all, who would dare to touch Shenzhen now? Other than Murong Yu, Shenzhen also had a few honorable realm experts. Moreover, Nuhua and Wushuang, the two titled honorable realm experts, were also overseeing the holy world. The holy world had finally completed its true unification. Moreover, under the operations of Murong Yu, Shenzhen, and the others, Shenzhen was like the God world, immortal world, and other worlds, becoming the only holy ground. There was no restriction on race. Shenzhen only recruited disciples with potential and good aptitude. This was because Murong Yu knew that the holy world wasn't the final stage for cultivators. Moreover, the unification was extremely beneficial to Murong Yu. His power of faith was increasing and becoming purer. This power of faith wouldn't disappear even if Murong Yu left the holy world in the future. Instead, it would continue to pour into his body. Unless the people in the holy world no longer believed in Murong Yu, or if Murong Yu took the initiative to cut them off. Without the other honorable realm experts causing trouble, Murong Yu could finally prepare to raise his strength without any distractions. He didn't directly refine Chang Tian's physical body and his soul sovereign weapon. First, Murong Yu refined the holy world's origin source that was originally forcefully refined by Chang Tian. After killing Chang Tian, Murong Yu controlled 4/9 of the holy world's origin source. In the end, it wasn't difficult to refine it directly. 7/9 of the holy world's origin source was already controlled by Murong Yu. Now, only 2/9 of the holy world's origin source wasn't found. Before this, Murong Yu searched the entire holy world but didn't find the remaining 2 portions of the holy world's origin source. However, after he refined the holy world's origin source that originally belonged to Changtian, he sensed the remaining holy world's origin source. One of them was in the god world, transformed into a god weapon and was controlled by an expert. When Murong Yu discovered it, his face couldn't help but darken. Because that expert was an expert from Shenzhen, and he had appeared in front of Murong Yu before. In fact, Murong Yu had seen that god weapon before. It was just that he didn't discover anything at that time. Therefore, Murong Yu used a peak-grade god weapon to exchange for the holy world's origin source. Furthermore, Murong Yu had personally given that expert some pointers. Although these were far from the holy world's origin source, it was enough to make that expert from the god world feel grateful towards Murong Yu. The last portion of the holy world's origin source was in the depths of the Pillar of Heaven's Mountains in the mortal world, Pillar of Heaven's Mountains, which was also the place where Murong Yu changed Murong Yu back then. In the Pillar of Heaven's Mountains, Murong Yu met Hichu Luoshu, and from then on, his fate began to change. Rumble, when Murong Yu refined the 9 portions of the holy world's origin source, and when the holy world's origin source fused into one, the entire holy world shook violently. However, although this tremor was intense, it only lasted for a moment, and some people didn't even notice it. Even if they did, they would only think that it was an illusion. I've finally gained complete control of the holy world. Murong Yu didn't need to extend his divine sense to envelop the entire holy world. Right now, the holy world was like a part of Murong Yu's body. He could appear anywhere in the holy world in an instant if he wanted to. As long as he wanted to, he could kill any life in the holy world with a single thought. He controlled everything in the holy world. This was a ruler. However, Murong Yu also discovered that even though he had become a ruler, his divine sense couldn't penetrate the outer realm and reach the endless starry sky outside. It was as if there was an extremely powerful barrier outside the holy world that blocked everything. Besides that, Murong Yu discovered that even though he was a ruler, he couldn't revive a person out of thin air. Just like his parents in the mortal world. Although Murong Yu had already extracted a strand of their souls, he couldn't revive them. Rulers were the strongest existences in the holy world, but it seemed like they were still a little weak. Could it be because my cultivation level hasn't reached that level yet? Murong Yu pondered as he began to refine Chang Tian's body and his ruler weapon. If he wanted to leave the holy world and roam the endless starry sky, Murong Yu needed to have the strength to break through reincarnation. However, he couldn't even sense any signs of it. His strength wasn't there yet. While he was refining Chang Tian's body, Murong Yi and the others who had been revived by Murong Yu with the soul fruit also began to break through to the supremacy stage. Other than them, Murong Yi Xian, Mu Liue and the others were also found by Murong Yu. Various existences like the heart of the ocean and the heart of the devil were fused with them. Murong Yu was definitely going to leave the holy world in the future. However, he didn't want his family and Shenzhen to be killed after he left the holy world. Therefore, before he left, he had to nurture his family and the experts of Shenzhen. Not to mention that all the supremacies in the holy world were Shenzhen's people, but at least Shenzhen had people who could control the situation and prevent Murong Yu's orthodoxy from being destroyed. When Murong Yu completely refined Chang Tian's clone and reached the level of a 9-star supremacy, Murong Yi and the others broke through as well. Their bodies were already terrifying. As long as they cultivated diligently, they would reach the level of a supremacy artifact sooner or later. After Murong Yu became a ruler, all sorts of heavenly treasures piled up as if they were free. Breaking through to the supremacy stage couldn't be any easier. First, it was Murong Yi Kurlan and the others. Then, Zhao Jiqing, Murong Yi, and the others broke through one after another. Murong Yu's clone also successfully broke through. After cultivating the Sun Sutra, the clone's strength and talent became more and more heaven-defying. Of course, this was also because the previous supremacies were all killed by Changtian. Otherwise, if the supremacies of the holy world reached the state of berserk, they wouldn't be able to break through no matter how heaven-defying they were. This was the limit of the world. It had nothing to do with one's talent or talent. As long as I refine this soul supremacy artifact, I can definitely reach the ruler realm. Murong Yu took out Changtian's soul supremacy artifact and was about to refine it. However, at this moment, boom! Very suddenly, the entire Saint's world seemed to have been struck by something. Before Murong Yu could react, an incomparably frightening aura erupted from the point of impact and rapidly spread out in all directions. In an instant it enveloped the entire holy world. Plop, plop, plop. Just as the terrifying aura enveloped the entire holy world, most of the saints in the holy world were suppressed to the point of prostrating on the ground. In fact, some of the weaker sages were directly shattered into pieces. Chapter 1830. Back to the previous moment. Holy World, Qinghe Mountain Range. A ship the size of a mountain suddenly tore through the void and appeared in the sky above Qinghe Mountain Range. However, this ship was different from ordinary ship. This was because it was a flying ship, a flying magic artifact. In the Holy World, there were countless flying saint artifacts like this. However, they were usually not very big. After all, if a flying saint artifact was bigger, the consumption of saint crystals or saint veins during the flight would increase exponentially. Moreover, the materials used during the manufacturing process were the same. Therefore, flying saint artifacts that could carry thousands or tens of thousands of people were already considered top-notch in the Holy World. However, the ship in front of him was as big as a mountain. Not to mention tens of thousands of people, it could even carry hundreds of thousands or millions of people. There was no such ship in the Holy World. After all, even those supreme experts could not afford the resources used by the ship. The consumption of saint veins for every second of this ship was a terrifying number. In the entire Holy World, even Murong Yu could not afford to use it. However, this ship that appeared out of nowhere was a little tattered, as if it had been flying in the endless starry sky for billions of eras and was corroded by the river of time. After the ship appeared, it charged into Qinghe Mountain Range at an extremely terrifying speed. Boom! After a shocking explosion, the boundless Qinghe Mountain Range was instantly shattered by the shockwave from the collision of the ship. From then on, Qinghe Mountain Range no longer existed. The moment the ship crashed into Qinghe Mountain Range, Murong Yu felt the entire Holy World tremble violently. Clearly, the trembling of the Holy World was caused by the collision of the ship. A collision of a ship caused the entire Holy World to tremble? What was the origin of this ship? Its power was actually so terrifying? Moreover, this was only a tattered ship that fell into the Holy World. If a complete spaceship intentionally crashed into the Holy Realm, wouldn't the Holy Realm be smashed into pieces? In fact, it had even exploded into pieces. The entire ship sank deep into the ground of the Holy World. Very soon, an extremely terrifying power erupted from the bottom of the ship. With a bang, the entire spaceship suddenly collapsed and flew up. Following that, a black shadow turned into a stream of light and shot out from the depths of the ground. Pooey! What kind of place is this? The black shadow stood still. It was a young man who was about 26 or 27 years old. Looking from afar, this person had an arrogant look on his face. In fact, there was even a hint of nobility emanating from his body. It was obvious that this person was the son of a wealthy family. As he spoke, the young man in brocade clothes released his enormous divine sense. In the blink of an eye, his divine sense had enveloped Murong Yu. His speed was almost the same as Murong Yu's. Could it be that this outsider was a sovereign? Enveloped by the senses of the soul, everything in the saint's world appeared in the young man's head with great clarity. There was nowhere to hide. However, the young man in embroidered clothes quickly shook his head. His originally arrogant face was now filled with disdain. How unlucky! I actually came to such a desolate place. A star ball? Although there were cultivators, they were all ant. Not even a sector lord? At the same time, a hint of disappointment flashed across the young man's face. Even if I refine such a planet, I'm afraid it won't be able to heal my injuries. However, although the level of the planet is low, it's better than nothing. It turned out that the young man in embroidered clothes was actually injured. Moreover, his injuries seemed to be quite severe. Presumably, his spaceship was riddled with holes because it was destroyed by his enemies. The reason why he appeared in the Saint's world was probably because he was being hunted down by his enemies. Outsider. When the young man in embroidered clothes enveloped the entire Saint's world with his spiritual force, Murong-Yu had already seen him. In fact, when the spaceship entered the Saint's world, Murong-Yu should have already noticed it. However, at that time, Murong-Yu was focused on increasing his cultivation and did not pay attention to it at all. Who is this person? His strength is actually so much more terrifying than Chang Tian's? Sensing the strength of the young man in embroidered clothes, Murong-Yu was shocked. Chang Tian was very powerful. He was even more powerful than Murong-Yu. The reason why Murong-Yu was able to kill him was all because of the weapon fragment. That was an accident. Of course, Murong-Yu's strength had increased by a lot. Even if he could not kill Chang Tian in a battle, he could still suppress him. However, Murong-Yu felt that in front of the young man in embroidered clothes, Chang Tian was like an ant. It was not that Chang Tian was too weak. It was that the young man in embroidered clothes was too strong. Murong-Yu thought to himself, although his strength had increased by a lot, he was not a match for the young man in embroidered clothes. Perhaps the young man in embroidered clothes could not kill him, but it was even more impossible for Murong-Yu to kill him. Because Murong-Yu had already controlled the Saint's world, even if he did not extend his spiritual force, every single movement in the Saint's world could not escape his eyes. Therefore, he saw the young man in embroidered clothes take a step forward after scanning the entire Saint's world with his spiritual force and disappear on the spot. As for the young man's words, Murong-Yu heard every single word clearly. A star sphere. Sector Lord? Murong-Yu muttered to himself. That was not difficult to understand. The so-called planet should be the Saint's world. And the Saint's world was only a star sphere? Looking at the young man's disdain and disappointment, the Saint's world was probably the lowest star sphere out of all the stars. This left Murong-Yu rather speechless. However, the young man's words made Murong-Yu's face sink. Right now, there was not a single person in the Saint's world who had undergone reincarnation. In other words, the people of the Saint's world could not leave the Saint's world at all. However, the young man in embroidered clothes wanted to refine the entire Saint's world? With the young man's strength and methods, Murong-Yu did not doubt that he could refine the Saint's world at all. After all, a true ruler could refine the entire Saint's world. However, if the young man in embroidered clothes refined the Saint's world, all the people in the Saint's world would be refined along with the Saint's world. No one would be able to escape. Although Murong-Yu was not a saint, there were many people in the Saint's world who were his family, friends, and even himself. Would he allow himself and his friends to be refined? That was impossible. Moreover, there were many people in the Saint's world who had become Murong-Yu's believers. If there were no interactions, Murong-Yu would not care so much. After all, with so many people in the Saint's world, how many could Murong-Yu save? However, Murong-Yu still wanted to save as many believers as he could while he was still capable of doing so. Moreover, the Saint's world was his home. How could he let someone refine it? He had to stop the young man in embroidered clothes. If it did not work, he would directly kill him. Murong-Yu did not care about the other party's identity. Even if he killed the young man in embroidered clothes, so what if he provoked the family behind him? Murong-Yu had an invincible heart. He was not afraid of any of that. However, although Morong Yu wanted to stop the young man in embroidered clothes, he knew his limit. He did not have the ability to stop him at all, so he did not make a move. On the contrary, he concealed his aura and began to refine the sovereign soul artifact. He wanted to increase his strength in the shortest time possible. Only by increasing his strength would he have the ability to stop the young man in embroidered clothes. At this moment, the young man in embroidered clothes had already begun to move. He first set up a super-large formation above the Qinghe mountain range. The formation was extremely complicated, but Morong Yu still recognized it. It was a formation that assisted in refining. The young man in embroidered clothes was probably heavily injured and could not refine the entire saint's world directly. Therefore, he needed to use the formation to refine it. Morong Yu was naturally happy to see this. The longer the young man in embroidered clothes refined the saint's world, the greater the chance of Morong Yu stopping him. After setting up the formation above the Qinghe mountain range, the young man in embroidered clothes left the mountain range and set up a second formation in the distance. One formation after another was set up. The young man in embroidered clothes was not worried at all. This was because he knew that there was no existence in the saint's world that could threaten him. As for his enemies, they would not be able to find this place for at least 10,000 years. Even if his enemies found him 10,000 years later, he would have recovered his strength by then. It was even possible that he would have improved. However, what made Morong Yu curious was that the resources the young man in embroidered clothes used to power the formation seemed to be many times more valuable than the highest grade saint bloodline. Even a small saint bloodline contained an extremely large amount of power. Even the weakest one was no weaker than a sovereign soul artifact. If this sovereign soul artifact can help me break through to the sovereign realm, these resources are good stuff. Morong Yu's eyes shone brightly. Although these things were set up in the formation, how could the formation stop Morong Yu's footsteps? 108,000 formations. After the young man in embroidered clothes set up a total of 108,000 formations, he finally stopped. Morong Yu was still refining the sovereign soul artifact and increasing his strength. There was still a long way to go before he reached the sovereign realm. It's finally done. As long as I refine this planet, not only will I be able to recover from my injuries, I'll even have some peace and quiet. The young man in embroidered clothes sat cross-legged in the air above the ninth heaven of the saint's world. A relieved smile appeared on his face. Formation, activate. After taking a deep breath, the young man in embroidered clothes' eyes flashed with a terrifying cold light. As he shouted in his heart, he waved his hands repeatedly. In the next moment, 108,000 streaks of light shot out from his hands and entered the formation he had set up earlier. At the same time, the 108,000 formations were activated. Immediately, a blinding light shot into the sky and enveloped the entire saint's world. Rumble, after a series of earth-shaking rumbles, the energy of the world in the saint's world surged wildly towards the formation. Chapter 1831. In just a single moment, the entire saint's world seemed to boil over. The 108,000 formations madly absorbed all the energy of the world in the saint's world. The energy of the world was first extracted by the formations before condensing in the air above the formations. Once it had condensed to a certain extent, the energy of the world blasted towards the young man. Tremendous amounts of energy of the world rapidly gathered around the young man. In the beginning, it was extremely dense, preventing people from seeing the young man who was enveloped by the energy of the world. Very soon, the energy of the world condensed into a liquid state. Liquefied energy of the world. At this moment, the young man finally moved. He opened his mouth abruptly and sucked in forcefully. Immediately, the liquefied energy of the world rapidly shrank like a flood, entering the young man's body in the end. He was like a whale swallowing water. With every breath, the extremely dense and surging energy of the world rapidly decreased, becoming diluted in the end. However, under the devouring of the 108,000 formations, even more energy of the world was rapidly replenished. At the sight of this, Murong Yu, who was in the middle of cultivating, frowned. The young man's so-called refinement of the saint's world was definitely not as simple as devouring the energy of the world. After all, just the energy of the resources that powered the formations was far greater than all the energy of the world in the entire saint's world. That's right, it was more than all the energy of the world combined. Since the young man had such power, why did he need to devour the energy of the world? Murong Yu guessed that the young man wanted to refine the saint's world because he wanted to obtain some special power from the saint's world. This power could heal his injuries. For example, the origin energy of the saint's world. Murong Yu's guess was not completely correct, but it was not completely wrong either. The origin energy of the saint's world was indeed what the young man needed. It was extremely effective for healing his injuries. However, although the saint's world was only a sphere, the energy it contained was extremely vast. Although the energy that powered the 108,000 formations was of a high level and tremendous, it was nothing compared to the energy obtained from refining the entire saint's world. The space of the entire saint's world began to violently churn. Some of the saints who were originally cultivating had no choice but to continue cultivating. This was because the heaven and earth yuan qi was extremely violent at this moment, and they were all shooting in the same direction. Those saints who wanted to cultivate, and even supremes, were unable to forcefully retain the heaven and earth yuan qi, let alone devour and refine it. Murong Yu's face immediately darkened. If this continued, it would not take long for the energy of the world in the entire saint's world to be completely devoured by the 108,000 formations. There were not many high-level saints in the saint's world to begin with, and without the energy of the world, there would be even fewer high-level saints. Moreover, it would cause some people to fight over the energy of the world. The saint's world would be plunged into chaos once again. As the formation continued to devour the energy of the energy of the world in the saint's world would be completely exhausted. At that time, there would be no yuan qi of heaven and earth to cultivate. The entire sacred world would slowly decline until the saints were wiped out countless years later. Of course, the premise was that the young man had not refined the entire saint's world before that. Killing intent flickered through Murong Yu's eyes. He would never allow someone else to refine the entire saint's world. It was just that he hadn't broken through yet. Cultivate. Murong Yu forced himself to calm down. He split a portion of his attention to observe the young man's situation, while the majority of his attention was focused on cultivation. What's going on? Why is the energy of the world getting thinner and thinner? If this continues, how am I supposed to cultivate? At this moment, the places in the saint's world where the energy of the world was not very dense were basically devoid of it. Some of the places where the energy of the world was denser were slowly drying up. Even places like the 10 sacred lands of the human race usually had formations that sealed off the energy of the world. However, these formations were unable to seal off the energy of the world. It was all sucked away. In just a single day, the energy of the world in the entire saint's world had decreased by 1/10. If this continued, the saint's world would be completely devoid of energy in 10 days. Once the energy of the world dried up, it would be time for the young man to refine the saint's world. What's going on? The energy of the world is decreasing. Is the end of the saint's world? Is this related to the deaths of the Supremes from before? Did that battle destroy the saint's world? Where's Murong Yu? Why hasn't Murong Yu appeared to take charge? Without the energy of the world, even saints like us won't be able to increase our strength. If the saint's world is destroyed, we'll definitely die as well. As time passed, everyone in the saint's world began to panic. Apart from Shenzhen, the entire saint's world was in a state of panic. Every single one of them believed that the end of the saints' world had arrived. Moreover, in their hearts, Morong Yu was the only true ruler. However, now that the saints' world was about to be destroyed, Morong Yu still did not appear. This caused some of the believers who originally believed in him to no longer believe in him. The number of believers decreased drastically. Furthermore, because Morong Yu hadn't shown himself for a long time, some of his original followers were cursing him. In their eyes, Morong Yu should be omnipotent. Even if the saints' world was destroyed, Morong Yu would still be able to turn the situation around. Morong Yu naturally sensed this. However, he did not do anything, nor did he let Shenzhen appear. Although his power of faith was decreasing, he had killed the young man in embroidered clothes in the end. He had turned the situation around, so the power of faith would naturally return. Just as Morong Yu had guessed, 10 days later, there was no more energy of the world in the saints' world at all. All the energy of the world had been devoured by the young man in embroidered clothes. The vast amount of energy of the world was definitely enough for Morong Yu to break through to ruler. Breaking through to ruler would not be a problem at all. However, to the young man in embroidered clothes, it was only an appetizer. Who knew what his original cultivation was for him to be so terrifyingly strong? I never thought that I would be able to recover 1/10 of my injuries after devouring an entire sphere of energy of the world. The young man in embroidered clothes opened his eyes. A smear of surprise flashed through his eyes. He had only recovered 1/10 of his injuries after devouring so much energy of the world. Just how severe were his injuries? Just what level has his strength reached? Morong Yu almost coughed up blood when he heard what the young man in embroidered clothes had said. Wasn't the difference just too great? The young man in embroidered clothes continued, "Not only will my injuries heal after refining the saints' world, but my cultivation will also improve. I can't wait any longer." As he spoke, the 108,000 formations began to operate once again. Refine them all. As the young man in embroidered clothes roared, an extremely terrifying power erupted from his body. Then, with his body as the center, it rapidly spread out in all directions. In less than an instant, the entire saints' world was enveloped by his terrifying power. The terrifying pressure erupted, and immediately, some of the weaker saints in the saints' world were unable to endure it. They directly exploded into a bloody mist. In an instant, the saints' world lost countless low-level saints. After these saints exploded, the blood mist was devoured by the young man in embroidered clothes. It turned into 2 blood-red torrents that flowed into the young man's body. This was the essence blood of the saints. It was a great supplement to him. At the very least, it could heal 20% of his injuries. Morong Yu's face turned ashen. The number of saints in the saints' world from the human race, the sacred race, and the demon race was terrifying. However, there was a limit to the number of saints. If the young man in embroidered clothes went on a killing spree, he would not even need a day to wipe out all life in the saints' world, including the ferocious beast. Then, he would refine the saints' world, and the saints' world would disappear from the boundless universe forever. Large numbers of saints were being killed at every moment. Under the young man's power, these saints could only crawl on the ground, unable to resist even if they were supremes. In other words, they could only sit and wait for death. These were all Morong Yu's people. Morong Yu was completely enraged. "Refine it for me!" Morong Yu roared. In his madness, he finally succeeded in refining Firmament's Soul Dominator weapon, which he couldn't refine for a long time. An enormous amount of energy poured into Morong Yu's body. Immediately, Morong Yu's strength began to skyrocket. Titled Supremes, Peak Supremes. Sovereign. Morong Yu finally broke through and entered the sovereign realm. His soul and cultivation were both supremes. Before this, the saints' world's oceans had dried up and the land had declined. However, the moment Murong Yu broke through, a dazzling rainbow light enveloped the entire saint's world. The rainbow light was like a spark of fire, appearing in every corner of the saint's world. Then, the light quickly drilled into the bodies of countless life forms. Originally, these life forms were unable to advance due to the depletion of heaven and earth yuan qi. In fact, due to the consumption of energy, their cultivation levels were slowly declining. However, when the seven-colored light entered their bodies, their realms were forcibly raised. Rumble, almost at the same time, all life forms in the saint's world broke through. Those with poor aptitudes rose by a small realm. Those with slightly better aptitudes rose by 3 or 4 small realms. Those with heaven-defying aptitudes rose by a large realm. This is the aura of Murong True Lord. Rainbow Holy Light, Murong True Lord has finally broken through to the sovereign realm. Our saint's world is saved. After everyone's cultivation increased, they all felt Murong Yu's aura. Even if some people had never seen Murong Yu before, they could feel his aura. At this moment, they knew that the rainbow light was related to Murong Yu. Murong Yu had become a sovereign and blessed the world. Chapter 1832. Oh? Someone broke through to ruler? The moment Murong Yu broke through, the youth in embroidered clothes immediately sensed his presence. However, the surprise on his face only lasted for a moment before disdain appeared on his face. To him, a ruler was nothing more than a slightly stronger ant. No matter how strong an ant was, they were still an ant. They would never be a threat to him. The saint's world would be refined by him in the end, and a new ruler like Murong Yu would not be able to escape the fate of being refined either. As a result, the young man continued to refine the saint's world after recovering from his surprise. On the other side, Murong Yu suddenly opened his eyes. 2 streaks of light immediately shot out from his eyes, piercing through the layers of chaos and entering the endless cosmos. In the end, they disappeared into the depths of space. Terrifying killing intent radiated from him, instantly enveloping the entire saint's world. However, the killing intent was not targeted at the people of the saint's world. Instead, it was targeted at the young man. And because Murong Yu was a ruler, the killing intent actually dissolved the pressure from the young man after it filled the entire saint's world. Many people in the saint's world straightened their back. Interesting. The young man smiled faintly. At the same time, a ripple appeared in the void in front of him. Afterwards, a black-clothed young man stepped through the air and appeared in his vision. "You're the person who just broke through to World Lord, right?" The young man looked at Murong Yu calmly. Murong Yu's eyes narrowed slightly. This was because he saw a sliver of disdain in the depths of the young man's eyes. He, a dual ruler, was actually being looked down on? Murong Yu did not feel angry about this. Instead, he became calmer and calmer. The young man's disdain was proof of his strength. "Leave the saint's world immediately." Murong Yu looked at the young man as his killing intent skyrocketed. The young man looked at Murong Yu and suddenly laughed. "You want me to leave the saint's world? With just you? Do you know who I am? Do you know that a mere world lord like you is just an ant in my eyes? Leave the saint's world." Murong Yu's voice became even colder. His killing intent spread out like a surging torrent towards the brocade-robed youth. The brocade-robed young man's face instantly darkened. In the blink of an eye, 2 rays of light shot out and turned into 2 saber lights, which fiercely strangled Murong Yu. At this moment, Murong Yu's heart was suddenly enveloped by an extremely strong aura of death. Boom! Murong Yu's heart trembled as he threw out a punch. After an earth-shattering explosion, Murong Yu was sent flying. However, the 2 rays of light that shot out from the young man's eyes were also shattered by Murong Yu. "You actually managed to block my attack. Interesting. Kid, you're not bad. Submit to me. I can take you out of the saint's world," the young man said indifferently. His tone was arrogant, and he looked at Murong Yu as if he was looking at an ant. Murong Yu's face was extremely gloomy, I'm not interested in becoming your dog. Moreover, you won't have the chance to leave the saint's world. As he spoke, Murong Yu had already taken a step forward. He circulated his strength to the limit and threw a punch towards the young man. You're courting death. The young man seemed to be angry. He threw out a palm and directly slapped towards Murong Yu. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying aura erupted from the young man's body. It locked onto Murong Yu and directly suppressed him. This aura covered the heavens and the earth, suppressing thousands of worlds. It was many times stronger than the heavens aura from before. In fact, before the young man's attack even landed, the terrifying aura had already suppressed Murong Yu's body, which had reached the level of a supreme artifact, to the point that cracks started to appear. Under this terrifying aura, Murong Yu's attack was infinitely slow. Murong Yu's fist seemed to have hit an endless swamp. The further it went, the greater the resistance, and the slower it became. Murong Yu's heart turned cold. The young man's strength had exceeded his expectations. At this moment, although he had not used all of his techniques, he had already struck out with the strength of a sovereign. Domain, suppress. Murong Yu roared in his heart. He directly mobilized the origin energy of the saint's world to form a domain nearby. Originally, after Murong Yu became a sovereign, the entire saint's world was his domain, and he could dominate the saint's world. However, now that Murong Yu had compressed the entire saint's world's domain, it covered an area of 100 miles. As a result, the power of the domain increased by millions of times. With a tearing sound, the young man's aura was directly shattered by the power of the domain. Murong Yu took advantage of this opportunity and threw a punch at the young man's face. Bang! A blinding light burst out from the young man's face. At the same time, a terrifying force rebounded. Kacha Murong Yu's fist was directly sent flying. However, the force continued to attack Murong Yu. Murong Yu was shocked. His body, which had reached the level of a sovereign artifact, was actually shattered. However, the young man was not injured at all. Furthermore, the frightening power that had suddenly erupted could even kill Murong Yu in an instant. In his shock, he activated the power of the domain repeatedly and suppressed it. At the same time, Murong Yu had already circulated his strength to the limit. In an instant, he threw out 1,000,000 punches and finally shattered the force. However, Murong Yu's saint body was also shaken. The blood in his body churned like a raging sea. Kid, you have successfully angered me. The young man was really angry. What was Murong Yu's identity? What was his identity? He was a supreme existence of the rebirth realm. Not to mention a 1-star sector lord, he could even kill a 9-star sector lord with a single slap. As long as he was willing, even a 9-star sector lord would not be able to get close to him. Just by getting close to him, he would be suppressed by his supreme aura and could only crawl on the ground. However, Murong Yu had punched him in the face. Although it did not really hit his face, it was rebounded by his protective power. However, the difference between the two was too great. Murong Yu had undoubtedly given him a hard slap in the face. Slap, slap. He had actually been slapped in the face by an ant in his eyes? How could the young man not be angry? When a rebirth realm expert was angry, even a small world would be burned to ashes. Boom! An even more terrifying aura than before exploded from his body and attacked Murong Yu like a raging wave. At the same time, the young man had already thrown out a palm strike towards Murong Yu. Rumble, the domain let out an unpleasant and ear-piercing sound. At the same time, it trembled violently as though it would shatter at any time. Murong Yu's body, which had reached the level of a supreme weapon, was rapidly being squeezed until terrifying cracks appeared on it. If it was heaven, it would definitely not be able to withstand the young man's attack. It would definitely be killed in one hit. However, Murong Yu was not heaven. Instead, he was countless times stronger than heaven. Saint Soul Slash. Finally, at this crucial moment, Murong Yu exploded. Soul attack. Soul attack. The young man's expression changed slightly. However, that was all there was to it. The power in his body rumbled, and an extremely powerful power had already enveloped the entire soul space. PFFF. Saint's soul struck the young man's soul space. However, that was all there was to it. Although it had cut off a lot of the young man's power, it had been destroyed before it could hit his soul. Murong Yu's heart sank. Now that even his soul attack could not hurt him, what should he do? 9 words mantra. Seeing that the young man's attack was about to hit him, Murong Yu activated the 9 words mantra. In an instant, the 9 ancient characters formed a string. Under Murong Yu's control, they charged towards the youth's palm. The young man's face revealed a touch of disdain. Although the 9 ancient words were not simple, he did not think that they could withstand his attack. However, soon, the disdain on the young man's face turned into shock. Then, it was shrouded by intense greed. Bang! The 9 words mantra burst out a dazzling light. The terrifying power actually sent the young man in embroidered clothes flying. However, Murong Yu did not have it easy either. The power in his body was instantly sucked dry. He had successfully blocked the young man's attack, but the price was that all his power had been sucked dry. At the same time, he was also sent flying. However, he did not suffer any injuries. Because of the Tree of Life, this price was almost no cost to him. Suppress. The roots of the Tree of Life, which were rooted in the endless chaos, trembled rapidly. Waves of chaotic power rushed into Murong Yu's body like stormy waves. In an instant, his power was restored to its peak state. Under Murong Yu's control, the 9 syllables of truth carried an incomparably terrifying pressure as it smashed towards the embroidered clothed youth. The young man's face was full of greed. He stretched out his big hand and directly grabbed the 9 words mantra. The 9 ancient words could actually push him back. It was definitely a treasure. If he could control the 9 ancient words, wouldn't he be invincible in the same realm? He might even be able to fight across realms and kill a super expert in the chaotic realm. However, how could the 9 words mantra be suppressed so easily? In the beginning, the young man was pushed back again and again. However, he was not angry. Instead, he became more and more delighted. Murong Yu relied on the 9 words mantra to temporarily tie with the young man. However, this was only temporary. Moreover, Murong Yu did not want to tie with the young man. He wanted to kill him. Therefore, he already had the weapon fragment in his hand. As long as he had the chance, he could use the weapon fragment to kill the young man in one blow. Chapter 1833. How strong was a rebirth state cultivator? Murong Yu didn't know. Murong Yu couldn't suppress the youth even when he unleashed the origin energy of the sacred world. It could even be said that his domain couldn't even withstand a single blow from the youth. Moreover, the youth was only an ordinary rebirth state cultivator. Most importantly, he was heavily injured. It was only by relying on the power of the 9 syllables that Murong Yu was able to fight to a draw with the youth. If not for the 9 syllables, Murong Yu wouldn't be a match for the youth even if he had both soul and cultivation. Of course, if the youth was at his peak, he could probably kill tens of thousands of people like Murong Yu with a single slap. One could imagine how terrifying a rebirth state cultivator was. Murong Yu, a 1-star sector lord, was simply too weak. Of course, Hichu Luoshu and 9 syllables weren't as powerful as they were now. It was just that Murong Yu couldn't unleash their full power due to his limited strength and realm. Otherwise, the 9 syllables would be able to suppress tens of thousands of worlds. How could a mere rebirth state cultivator resist it? He could instantly kill him. Now, other than the weapon fragment, Murong Yu had used all his other methods. However, it was still a draw with the youth. The weapon fragment was Murong Yu's final trump card. He would only use it when he had absolute confidence to kill the youth. The time and space laws were used. However, because the difference in strength between Morong Yu and the youth was too great, it didn't pose a threat to the youth. The youth's face was gloomy and his heart was filled with killing intent. Who was he? In the rebirth state, he was considered a genius. Although he was heavily injured, Morong Yu was just an ant in his eyes. How could he fight him to a draw? If news of this were to spread, wouldn't he be laughed at? The youth felt like a tiger being bullied by a dog. However, what made him angry and helpless was that he had nothing now. While being chased by his enemies, he had also brought out his essence artifact and various other treasures. Otherwise, with the origin artifact in his hand, he could have killed Morong Yu in one strike. The longer he fought with Morong Yu, the angrier he became. Naturally, their attacks became fiercer and fiercer. The terrifying presence enveloped the entire saint's world, causing the souls of countless beings to tremble. The heavens and earth of the outer realm were smashed apart. The terrifying force passed through the endless chaotic layers and struck the devastated saint's world, flattening the mountains and seas. Countless lives were turned into dust by this terrifying impact. This caused Morong Yu's faith power to continuously decrease. There was nothing he could do about it. His believers began to attack without stopping. Morong Yu's face was cold, and his heart was filled with killing intent. If this continued, even if the saint's world was not refined by the youth, everyone in the saint's world would be turned into dust by the aftershocks of their battle. However, Morong Yu still did not bring out the weapon fragment. As his final trump card, he had to use it when he had absolute confidence in killing the youth in one strike. Now, the youth was getting angrier and angrier. As long as he was angry, there would be some problems with his defense. Finally, after more than half a day, Morong Yu found an opening. This is the moment. Morong Yu roared in his heart. At the same time, the faith power that had been in his body for a long time burst out. The faith power contained the weapon fragment like a stormy sea and turned into an almost invisible stream of light. It tore through the sky and slashed at the youth in embroidered clothes. With a swoosh, the weapon fragment appeared in front of the youth in embroidered clothes. The youth in embroidered clothes was immediately enveloped by an intense aura of death. At the same time, the reaction of a rebirth state expert was displayed. With a sway of his body, he retreated explosively. In an instant, he retreated hundreds of millions of miles. His speed far surpassed Morong Yu's. It even surpassed the speed of the faith power. Morong Yu sighed in pity. The weapon fragment's speed was relatively fast, but the youth in embroidered clothes was even faster. This attack was considered a failure. After this failure, it would be impossible to use the weapon fragment to sneak attack the youth in embroidered clothes, because the youth in embroidered clothes already had a defense. However, something unexpected happened to Morong Yu. What a powerful weapon fragment! This definitely surpasses the level of a rebirth state origin item. Although it's just a weapon fragment, if it's in my hands, killing a Chaos Realm expert would be no problem at all. The youth in embroidered clothes had a lingering fear on his face, but his eyes were filled with greed as he looked at the weapon fragment that was shooting towards him. The youth in embroidered clothes would never have thought that a mere one-star sector lord like Morong Yu would have so many powerful cultivation techniques and battle techniques. The planet where the Holy World was located was only a one-star barren planet, and the strength of the cultivators here was too horrible to look at. However, this didn't matter. The youth in embroidered clothes was determined to kill Morong Yu and take everything from him. If he knew that Morong Yu also had a chaotic celestial body, would he faint from excitement? Suppress it. At this moment, Morong Yu saw that he couldn't kill the youth in one blow, so he controlled the weapon fragment and was about to withdraw it. However, the youth in embroidered clothes suddenly reached out and grabbed the weapon fragment. Instantly, the weapon fragment was caught in his palm. Suppress it! The youth in embroidered clothes roared and released a terrifying power to suppress the weapon fragment, trying to erase the consciousness that Murong Yu had left in it. All of this happened in an instant, so fast that Murong Yu didn't even have time to react. At this moment, the weapon fragment suddenly exploded with a dazzling light. At the same time, a terrifying aura that caused the youth's soul to tremble erupted from the weapon fragment with a bang. The weapon fragment that the youth in embroidered clothes suppressed in his hand shook violently. Instantly, the hand of the young man in embroidered clothes was shattered into pieces. The youth in embroidered clothes and Murong Yu were stunned. While they were stunned, the weapon fragment had already shattered the sky and tore through space and time as it shot towards the youth in embroidered clothes. The youth in embroidered clothes quickly reacted and retreated rapidly. At the same time, he gathered his strongest attack on his right fist and punched towards the weapon fragment because he felt an intense aura of death from the weapon fragment. Pooh! The fist of the young man in embroidered robes was directly shattered into pieces. The weapon fragment flashed and directly entered the youth in embroidered clothes' head and came out from the back of his head. Plop! Without any sign of heaven and earth, the youth in embroidered clothes fell straight from the void without any signs of life. The youth in embroidered clothes had fallen. He was killed by the weapon fragment in one hit. At the same time, Murong Yu's body fell as well. It couldn't be helped. Although the weapon fragment had exploded with power and killed the youth in an instant, it was still too late. The price was that Murong Yu's power of faith, chaotic energy, and soul power were exhausted. The hundreds of millions of roots of the Tree of Life that had taken root in the endless primal chaos began to tremble. Immediately, a torrent of primal chaos energy rushed into Murong Yu's body, rapidly replenishing his exhausted energy. After a while, his strength was almost recovered. However, the power of faith and soul power didn't recover so quickly. It would take a long time for them to recover. After recovering his strength, Murong Yu immediately extended his hand and grabbed the corpse of the embroidered clothed youth that had fallen to the ground. Although the youth was heavily injured, he was a rebirth state expert after all. His body contained immense power and memories. Now that Murong Yu didn't have any understanding of the endless starry sky outside the realm, he needed to get some information from the youth. However, to Murong Yu's disappointment, the youth's soul had already been shattered by the weapon's fragments. Not even a trace of it remained. This made Murong Yu a little depressed. However, Murong Yu still managed to extract some memory fragments from the youth's body in the end. Although there weren't many memories, it was enough for Murong Yu. While Murong Yu was doing this, due to the death of the embroidered clothed youth, the array he'd set up had stopped operating. The energy of heaven and earth that had been absorbed slowly dissipated, allowing the saint's world to recover its vitality. However, the mountains and oceans that had been flattened couldn't be restored. The people who had died because of the disaster couldn't be revived either. However, since the youth was dead, there was no possibility of the saint's world being destroyed. Murong Yu didn't care about this. After all, the saint's world would return to its original state after a long time. Right now, he was stunned by the youth's memories. Strictly speaking, the saint's world was just a planet. In the endless starry sky, there were many planets like the saint's world. On the contrary, the stars in the saint's world's sky at night were planet. In the endless starry sky, there were many planets with life like the saint's world. These planets were divided into 9 grades. 1 star to 9 stars. 1 star was the most barren and had the weakest cultivators. Of course, these planets weren't all planets with life. Most of them were dead planets with no life. There were also some planets that weren't suitable for humans, demons, and other races to live on. Every planet was a small world, and the ruler of each small world was called a realm lord. For example, Murong Yu was only a 1-star realm lord. He was the weakest among all the realm lords. Above the realm lords was the rebirth state. The so-called rebirth state was an expert who had passed through rebirth. Chapter 1834. Rebirth Realm, Chaos Realm. Murong Yu's eyes flickered with a brilliant light. All this time, Murong Yu only knew that he would become a chaos controller once he mastered the chaotic celestial body. However, when Murong Yu came into contact with rulers, he felt that the next realm after rulers might not be chaos controller. After all, although rulers could rule a world, could a world be equivalent to the entire chaos realm? Obviously, the holy world did not represent the entire chaos realm. Before coming into contact with the youth, he had come into contact with the Sun Monarch. The Sun Monarch was definitely stronger than rulers. Moreover, the endless starry sky was definitely more vast than the holy world. In that case, the next realm after rulers was definitely not chaos controller. After all, there were people like the Sun Monarch and the youth. However, if the youth was in the rebirth realm, what realm was the Sun Monarch? Was he in the rebirth realm or the chaos realm? Was there an even stronger realm after the chaos realm? Was he the chaos master? In the past, Murong Yu did not know what was happening outside the holy world. Now that he knew, he did not feel discouraged because there were more people who were stronger than him. On the contrary, he was extremely excited. To him, the holy world was just a small stage. He needed a bigger stage to display himself and eventually control the entire chaos realm. This was his lifelong pursuit. However, everything had to start from breaking through rebirth. If he could not break through rebirth, Murong Yu would die. Countless years after his death, the world would give birth to another chaotic celestial body. Unfortunately, Murong Yu did not extract the method to break through rebirth from the youth's memories. Furthermore, Murong Yu wasn't very clear about the youth's background. He only knew that he came from a water cloud plane in a galaxy called the Solar System. Planet? Plane? Galaxy? This should be the most basic knowledge in the starry sky. Murong Yu, on the other hand, was completely baffled. It could not be helped. The holy world was just too weak. He did not know that the starry sky outside was like this. Murong Yu had never come into contact with it, so he naturally did not understand it. As for Hichu, although Hichu Luoshu was born from chaos, he only had memories of the sacred world. It was as if after it was born, it appeared in one world after another, and with the fall of each generation of its master, its memory would be erased. Murong Yu even doubted whether any of the previous celestial chaos had successfully broken through samsara. Shaking his head, Murong Yu tried to get rid of those memories. There was no point in thinking about those things, and even if he knew, he would not be able to leave the saint's world. Once he had broken through the cycle of reincarnation and could freely roam the endless starry sky, he would naturally learn about this common knowledge. The most important thing right now was to increase his strength. However, other than the corpse of the young man in the brocade robe, there was only his tattered spaceship. On the other hand, the young man in embroidered clothes had no other treasures apart from a spatial treasure. Those resources that were of a higher grade than a saint bloodline had long been used up by him. Refine the corpse of the young man in embroidered clothes. Murong Yu's strength had increased by a large margin. According to his estimation, his current strength was at least at the level of a 2-star ruler. However, this level of strength was enough to be a ruler in the saint's world, but compared to the young man in embroidered clothes, he was still an ant-like existence. This time, Murong Yu was speechless. He still had not sensed reincarnation, which meant that he was unable to break through reincarnation. Moreover, even if he sensed that he could break through reincarnation, he would not do so. Because there was a 9-star ruler, the highest level of a realm lord. According to the bits of memories he obtained from the young man in embroidered clothes, Murong Yu knew that the higher one's strength was when breaking through reincarnation, the stronger one would be after breaking through. There were even some experts who came from planets that after breaking through reincarnation, their strength would directly soar to the high level of rebirth realm. Murong Yu naturally wanted to become a 9-star ruler, or even higher, before breaking through reincarnation. Now, Murong Yu had already controlled the entire Saint's world. Apart from the endless starry sky, Murong Yu was already an invincible existence when experts from other planets or planes descended. It was because of this that Murong Yu was even more depressed, because he realized that there was nothing in the entire Saint's world that he could refine to increase his strength. And if there was nothing to refine, it would be incomparably difficult for Murong Yu to become a 9-star ruler. Now, Murong Yu even hoped that more experts would descend upon the Saint's world. Although that might be a disaster for the Saint's world, at least it would provide Murong Yu with something to refine and increase his strength. However, what made Murong Yu gratified was that the chaotic celestial record had already reached greater completion. This was a complete cultivation technique, and it had already reached greater completion. However, Murong Yu could still continue to cultivate until he reached the realm of primal chaos controller. And the chaotic celestial record could also continuously increase Murong Yu's realm and comprehension. At the very least, no matter what realm Murong Yu's strength reached, he wouldn't need to cultivate any other cultivation technique. The 9 syllables of truth had also been collected, but there were definitely other abilities. It was just that Murong Yu couldn't use or comprehend them with his current strength. Refine the flying ship. After handing over the task of rebuilding the Saint's world to Shenzhen and the others, Murong Yu also left a strength clone in Shenzhen to guide everyone's cultivation. After that, he began to refine the flying ship. Although the flying ship was tattered, it was unknown what realm it was refined with. Not only did it contain an incomparably large amount of energy, but it was also extremely sturdy. In the beginning, Murong Yu's chaotic furnace couldn't even refine it. One had to know that with Murong Yu's current strength, if he were to refine a ruler's weapon again, he would only need to shake it lightly to completely refine it. There was no difficulty at all. Could this be a rebirth state origin weapon? Murong Yu pondered in his heart. From the brocade-robed young man, Murong Yu knew that there were more powerful weapons above the ruler's weapon called origin weapon. Similar to holy weapons, origin weapons were also divided into rebirth state origin weapons and chaotic state origin weapons. Origin weapons were much more powerful than ruler's weapons. If it was an offensive origin weapon, the invisible aura that it emitted might be able to kill a titled supreme. Even an ordinary 1-star supreme could be easily killed. I wonder which is more powerful, the flying ship or the weapon fragment? Murong Yu pondered in his heart. The weapon fragment had already entered the chaotic furnace. Buzz. Just as the weapon fragment entered the chaotic furnace, it shook slightly. Instantly, layers of ripples appeared in the entire chaotic furnace. At the same time, a terrifying aura spread out rapidly from the weapon fragment towards the incomparably huge flying ship. The spaceship started to tremble rapidly, emitting waves of fear. Murong Yu's heart moved and in the next moment, the weapon fragment had already slashed out. Kacha, the flying ship that Murong Yu had refined for many years without moving, was directly slashed into billions of pieces by the weapon fragment. The weapon fragment is at least a chaotic state origin weapon. Murong Yu almost spat out. He had no choice, the weapon fragment was too powerful and it was beyond his expectations. The reason why he was so sure was because Murong Yu knew that after entering the rebirth state, the difference between each small realm was like the difference between a ruler and an ordinary supreme. Even if it was a small realm higher, it would definitely crush someone of a lower realm. Although the flying ship had been shattered into billions of pieces, its power did not dissipate because it was shattered in the chaotic furnace. Even if there was any loss, it would be refined by the chaotic furnace. However, the power contained in the flying ship was extremely terrifying. Murong Yu had refined it for a total of 10,000 years before it was completely refined. And the power of the flying ship had forcefully pushed Murong Yu's realm to the level of a 5-star sector lord. Of course, this was Morong Yu's own estimation. He wasn't sure if it was this realm. Furthermore, his true fighting strength had always been higher than his realm. This was only a flying ship used for transportation and not an offensive or defensive origin weapon. And it was a damaged one that was discarded by the youth. But even so, it still contained such terrifying power. Then, what if it was a complete rebirth state origin weapon? After refining it, would it raise Morong Yu's realm to the rebirth state? At this moment, Morong Yu suddenly really hoped that someone would be able to enter the sacred world in these 10,000 years. Not only did Morong Yu's strength increase, but many experts in the sacred world also increased in strength. Because of the youth, 10,000 years wasn't enough for the sacred world to return to its original state. But with Morong Yu's help and guidance, Kurlan and the rest, who were revived by Morong Yu using the spirit soul fruit, had all stepped into the sovereign realm. Other than them, Zhao Jiqing, Yang Hao, Xian Hua, and even Yin Gaoan, who refined the angel's heart and devil's heart, had all broken through. Morong Yu's wife and daughter had basically all reached the sovereign realm. Of course, under normal circumstances, even if they had the chance to break through to the sovereign realm, they definitely wouldn't be able to do so within 10,000 years. Not to mention 10,000 years, even 10,000 eras might not be possible. But who asked Morong Yu to be the sovereign realm? If Morong Yu wasn't thinking for them, he would have directly raised their strength to the Supreme Being realm. The heavenly demoness who had helped Morong Yu previously also recovered her cultivation with Morong Yu's help and became a titled sovereign once again. As for Lin Guyun and the others, Morong Yu had made promises to them, and all of them had basically fulfilled their promises. However, Morong Yu had only given Lin Guyu a titled Supreme Being level Supreme Artifact. He didn't have a ruler artifact for now. It wasn't that Morong Yu didn't want to give it to him, but he didn't have it now. All of this was within Morong Yu's expectations or control. But what he didn't expect was that his clone, who had cultivated the Sun Sutra, had already reached the titled sovereign realm. Chapter 1835. In terms of aptitude, Morong Yu's clone was the same as Morong Yu's original body. However, in terms of cultivation techniques, although the Sun scripture that his clone cultivated was powerful, it was not on the same level as the record of the chaotic celestial body. There was no comparison. However, the clone's cultivation level was much faster than Morong Yu's original body. This was because of Morong Yu's original body. He was the chaotic celestial body. Although his constitution was powerful, it was relatively difficult to break through. Otherwise, if his constitution was only ordinary, with his aptitude and the various resources he had obtained, his clone's cultivation speed would be far slower than his original body's. Everything was going according to Morong Yu's plan. Without the things that contained enormous power to refine, Morong Yu's strength could no longer increase. However, Morong Yu was not in a hurry to increase his strength. He still had something to do. As long as one was a paragon, they would have to nurture their own paragon weapon. However, nurturing a supreme artifact required an extremely long time. Therefore, most supremes only had one supreme artifact. Of course, if he killed other supremes and stole their supreme artifacts, it would be a different matter. The time it took Morong Yu to reach the sovereign realm from the supremes was simply too short. During this time, Morong Yu was extremely busy. He was busy unifying the holy world, fighting against the supremes, and cultivating. Therefore, he did not have the time to nurture his own supreme artifact. However, now that he was a 5-star sovereign, he no longer needed to nurture a supreme artifact. Instead, he needed to nurture a sovereign artifact. Nurturing a sovereign artifact required a longer time than nurturing a supreme artifact. It was more complicated and harder to succeed. This was because a sovereign artifact was more powerful than a supreme artifact. There were many ways to nurture a sovereign artifact. One way was for Morong Yu to do it himself. With Morong Yu's ability, he could easily create a prototype of a sovereign artifact. After a long period of nurturing, it would become a true sovereign artifact. Morong Yu now controlled the entire holy world. Although the materials needed to forge a ruler's armament were extremely rare, Morong Yu was able to gather them easily. Furthermore, there was no problem in refining it. The problem was that it would take an extremely long time. An era? 2 epochs? Or even 10 eras? It would take a long time, and Morong Yu simply didn't have the patience. Moreover, these were not things that could be solved by time acceleration. Therefore, this method was rejected by Morong Yu. In that case, Morong Yu could only use the second method. He had refined a powerful saint artifact into his own sovereign artifact. For example, Hichu Luoshu or weapon fragments. Regardless of whether it was the Hichu Luoshu or the weapon fragment, they were both existences that surpassed the level of a ruler's weapon. If it was refined by Morong Yu into his own personal sovereign armament, its power would be even greater. However, was it Hichu Luoshu? Or was it a weapon fragment? Hichu Luoshu was born from the primal chaos and was extremely powerful. Morong Yu believed that Hichu Luoshu would definitely be more powerful than the weapon fragment. However, Hichu Luoshu didn't need Morong Yu to refine it. As long as he didn't truly die, Hichu Luoshu wouldn't leave him. Moreover, Hichu Luoshu would continue to grow stronger as his strength increased. Moreover, Hichu Luoshu's main function was teleportation, and the Hichu Luoshu world inside it had defensive capabilities. However, Hichu Luoshu's offensive capabilities were practically zero. What Morong Yu needed was a powerful ruler's armament. Therefore, Morong Yu finally set his sights on the weapon fragment. He had already made his choice. However, the weapon fragment was an origin item. Would it agree to become Morong Yu's personal ruler's armament? If it was Hichu Luoshu, there was no need for Morong Yu to say anything. Hichu would have suggested that Morong Yu refine Hichu Luoshu into his personal ruler's armament. Morong Yu held the weapon fragment in his hand and looked at it. It was only the size of a fist. It was pitch black and didn't have any special characteristics. However, who would have thought that this broken weapon fragment would be able to instantly kill a rebirth realm expert? Morong Yu covered the weapon fragment with his divine sense and began to communicate with it. However, before the weapon fragment was attacked, it wouldn't react at all. Was Morong Yu going to try attacking it? Although the weapon fragment was becoming more and more compatible with Morong Yu didn't dare to try. What if this old man suddenly went berserk and killed him instantly? Who would he go to then? Forcefully refine it? This thought only flashed through Morong Yu's mind for a moment before disappearing without a trace. What a joke! He was just a mere 5-star sector lord. How could he refine an origin item? Even if it was just a fragment. Therefore, he could only communicate with it continuously. However, this old man didn't care about Morong Yu at all. After several days of communication, there was no reaction. This made Morong Yu feel very hurt. However, for the sake of the personal ruler's armament, Morong Yu still continued to communicate. During this process, Morong Yu had already returned to the sacred world. His original body appeared outside and guided Shenzhen and the rest in their cultivation. A part of his divine sense was constantly communicating with the weapon fragment. Just like that, 100 years passed. For a full 100 years, the weapon fragment didn't react at all. It didn't even care about Morong Yu. Finally, one day the weapon fragment finally trembled and reacted. It was probably annoyed by Morong Yu. Morong Yu had annoyed it for a full 100 years. It didn't speak and didn't communicate at all. However, Morong Yu was pleasantly surprised. Because the ripples emitted by the weapon fragment was agreeing to become Morong Yu's personal ruler's armament. This old man finally agreed. Morong Yu was almost in tears. Overjoyed, Morong Yu's heart moved. Instantly, the weapon fragment turned into a black light and entered his body. He was ready to refine it. After obtaining the weapon fragment's agreement, the process was very simple. The weapon fragment directly increased the compatibility between Morong Yu and it. Now, Morong Yu didn't need the support of the Sacred World's source to pick up the weapon fragment. In fact, under his control, the weapon fragment could hit wherever he wanted. Rumble. Suddenly, Morong Yu's divine telekinesis shook violently. In the next moment, he seemed to have appeared in the endless starry sky. In the distance in front of him, an incomparably huge saber stood between heaven and earth. The huge saber emitted a terrifying aura that made one's soul tremble. Streaks of black light flickered continuously, lingering around the saber and destroying the nearby starry sky. Incomparably huge planets continued to fly over, but when they flew close to the huge saber, they suddenly shattered and turned into dust. This was the power of the black saber. The power that was released unintentionally could destroy an incomparably huge planet. Morong Yu clearly saw that the planets that were destroyed by the saber were countless times bigger than the sacred world. Immediately, cold sweat broke out on Morong Yu's forehead. Just the power that was released unintentionally was already so terrifying. If the saber slashed down, wouldn't it instantly destroy trillions of planets? Was this still just an origin item? The power of an origin item was actually so terrifying? At the same time that this thought appeared in Morong Yu's mind, the black saber that was originally standing in the endless starry sky moved. The saber split the endless starry sky and then disappeared on the spot. In that instant, Morong Yu felt an indescribable yet incomparably powerful force forcefully pulling him over. Before he could react, a huge sword that emitted the same terrifying aura appeared in his sight. Rumble! The saber and the sword collided violently just like that, erupting with an extremely dazzling light. Then, under Morong Yu's shocked gaze, the saber and sword both shattered, turning into billions of fragments and disappearing into the endless starry sky. Morong Yu's gaze followed the tip of the saber as it quickly shuttled through the endless starry sky. During this process, the weapon fragment that was originally as huge as a planet rapidly shrank, finally becoming the size of a fist and landing on a planet. And that planet was the sacred world. At this moment, Morong Yu suddenly woke up. This was the weapon fragment that had led him back to its origin. It was a pity that Morong Yu had seen too little. He only knew that the black saber was extremely terrifying, but he did not know anything else. Was the black saber really just an origin item? Was their mutual attack just a spontaneous act, or was there someone controlling it? Such a terrifying origin artifact, what kind of almighty being could possess it? Instantly destroying billions of huge planets, was this almighty only in the rebirth state? Or was he in the chaotic realm? Morong Yu felt that even at his peak, the young man in embroidered clothes was far inferior to the black saber. Chaotic realm? Could someone in the chaotic realm control such a powerful and terrifying origin item? Morong Yu expressed his doubts. If this fragment burst forth with all its power, I'm afraid the sacred world would be shattered in an instant, right? Morong Yu was a little nervous, but more than that, he was excited. If he could find more weapon fragments and restore the black saber, then how terrifying would he be? Of course, this was only Morong Yu's thought. The black saber seemed to have exploded into billions of fragments. In the endless starry sky, how could Morong Yu find it? Of course, if he was a chaos controller, he could easily find it. However, if he was a chaos controller, would he still need this weapon fragment? With this weapon fragment, I will be invincible under the rebirth state. Even a 9-star ruler's weapon would not be able to withstand a single blow. Morong Yu thought as his battle intent soared. At this moment, he wanted nothing more than to have a great battle with a super expert. However, the sacred world was still a barren small planet in a corner of the endless starry sky. Who would come here? Chapter 1836. In the following period of time, Morong Yu completely refined the weapon fragment into his life ruler's armament. Following Morong Yu's breakthrough, this life ruler's armament would become Morong Yu's life origin artifact or even a weapon of a higher level. To Morong Yu, he'd already reached the realm of invincibility beneath the rebirth realm. Although he was still a 5-star world lord, 9-star world lords were no match for him. However, it would be extremely difficult for Morong Yu to increase his strength. This was because there was no longer anything in the saint's world that contained such a large amount of energy for him to refine. And because he hadn't passed through reincarnation, he couldn't leave the saint's world and roam the endless cosmos. Therefore, if Morong Yu wanted to increase his strength, there was only one way: to pass through the Heaven's Eye. Legend had it that the Heaven's Eye was a bridge that connected the saint's world to the endless cosmos. If Morong Yu could leave the saint's world through the Heaven's Eye, he wouldn't need to pass through reincarnation at all. In the endless starry skies there were countless treasures. When the time came, Morong Yu could easily obtain some treasures and rapidly raise his strength to the level of a 9-star sector lord. Then, he could pass through reincarnation in one go. The stronger one was before the reincarnation, the greater the benefits one would obtain after the reincarnation. However, although Morong Yu had plans to pass through the Heaven's Eye, he didn't go immediately. After all, the Heaven's Eye was still so mysterious and dangerous to him. If he wasn't careful, he might be trapped inside or even killed. Of course, there was another possibility, which was that Morong Yu directly left the saint's world through the Heaven's Eye. If that happened, how would Morong Yu return to the saint's world? If he couldn't return to the saint's world, and there were intruders in the saint's world, what should he do? Therefore, Morong Yu had to be prepared for everything. First, he used a large amount of time to help Shenzhen break through to the Exalt realm. He helped them all break through to the Exalt realm. This was because the previous supremes of the holy world had all been slaughtered by the heavens. Therefore, even a 1-star supremes were enough to dominate the holy world. Of course, there were also titled autarchs like Autarch Nuwa, Autarch Wushuang, and Heavenly Demoness. The 3 of them could watch over the saint's world without harming Morong Yu. The thing that Morong Yu was most at ease was naturally his clone. At this moment, his clone's strength had already reached the peak of the titled Supreme Martial Artist level. If Morong Yu wasn't a sovereign, his clone might have broken through to the sovereign realm. In the blink of an eye, 10,000 years had passed. At this moment, the saint's world had completely returned to its original state. Due to the young man in embroidered clothes, a cultivation craze had appeared in the saint's world. It was a scene of prosperity. Morong Yu finally bid farewell to his family and left the saint's world. He appeared before the Heaven's Eye again. Taking a deep breath, Morong Yu turned around and glanced behind him. Then, he took a step forward without hesitation and charged towards the Heaven's Eye. Just like the first time, Morong Yu was enveloped by a terrifying force before he could even get close to the Heaven's Eye. Then, it pulled Morong Yu over. The first time, Morong Yu was swallowed without being able to react at all. However, this time, Morong Yu was invincible under the rebirth realm. Moreover, he had a heaven-defying origin artifact like the weapon fragment. However, Morong Yu still felt a deep sense of helplessness. Even with the weapon fragment, Morong Yu was unable to resist the Heaven's Eye. The Heaven's Eye's existence had definitely surpassed the rebirth realm. As for whether it had surpassed the chaotic realm, Morong Yu had never seen an expert of that level. Therefore, he couldn't say for sure. Rumble. A frightening pressure rapidly squeezed Morong Yu from all directions, crazily crashing into his body. Even though Morong Yu's physical body had reached the level of a supreme artifact, he was still unable to resist this terrifying force. In the blink of an eye, his physical body began to crumble. If this continued, it wouldn't take more than 10 breaths of time for his physical body to crumble. With a thought, Murong Yu's strength at the level of a 5-star sector lord burst out and enveloped his entire body. Under the powerful pressure, the speed of his physical body crumbling greatly slowed down. The strength of the power here isn't enough to increase the strength of my physical body. Murong Yu's gaze was deep as he looked at the pitch-black heaven's eye. Then, he resolutely took a step forward and flew forward. Rumble! 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 In the beginning, Murong Yu's strength was still able to resist a portion of the heaven's eye's power. However, as he went deeper, his strength began to crumble. In the end, his strength was shattered by the heaven's eye's power before it could burst out. However, this strength of the heavens' eye was already effective in increasing the strength of his physical body. Therefore, Murong Yu didn't continue forward. Instead, he stopped and began to use the heaven's eye's power to refine his physical body. The strength of the physical body was also an increase in strength. Murong Yu was now in a state of triple cultivation. His cultivation, physical body, and soul wouldn't fall behind. Therefore, in the following period of time, Murong Yu repeated the painful process of his physical body being destroyed and reborn endlessly. As long as his physical body was strengthened, he would continue to move forward. However, how could it be so easy to increase the strength of his physical body from a supreme artifact to a ruler artifact? In the beginning, the heaven's eye's power could indeed increase the strength of Murong Yu's physical body. However, as Murong Yu's physical body grew stronger, the effect of the heaven's eye's power was rather obvious. Moreover, the heaven's eye's power was still constantly destroying Murong Yu's physical body. In other words, although Murong Yu's physical body was destroyed and reborn, it couldn't increase the strength of his physical body. Murong Yu had no choice but to use the weapon fragment. The weapon fragment was indeed a origin artifact. After the rays of black light fell down to protect Murong Yu, the heaven's eye's power couldn't penetrate it. However, the price was Murong Yu's rapid depletion of strength. Now that it had become Murong Yu's life ruler's armament, under normal circumstances, the weapon fragment would no longer be able to unleash its terrifying power. The power it could unleash was dependent on Murong Yu's strength. The stronger Murong Yu was, the stronger the weapon fragment's power would be. Of course, Murong Yu couldn't be sure whether the weapon fragment wouldn't release terrifying power when it encountered a power that could destroy it. Under the protection of the weapon fragment, Murong Yu kept going deeper into the heaven's eye. During this process, Murong Yu would occasionally release the weapon's power barrier and let in some of the heaven's eye's power to refine his physical body. It had been 1,000 years in the world. Murong Yu didn't know how many times his physical body had been destroyed and reborn. He was numb now. Fortunately, his physical body had been upgraded to the peak of a supreme artifact. He was only one step away from becoming a ruler artifact. Once he crossed this level, Murong Yu would become a human-shaped ruler artifact. His strength would skyrocket again. At this time, it had been an entire era since Murong Yu had entered the heaven's eye again. To a saint, an era was just the time of a nap. It wasn't long. However, it had to be known that Murong Yu didn't need more than a few eras to go from a mortal to a ruler. However, Murong Yu wasn't going to waste his time in this era. He became more proficient in all kinds of cultivation techniques and battle skills. The 9 syllables of truth also became more and more powerful. The greatest change was in his physical body. Rumble, suddenly, Murong Yu's physical body shook violently. Following that, rays of dazzling rainbow light shot out from his body and quickly spread out in all directions. At the same time, the entire holy world was enveloped by the rainbow light. All the cultivators who were enveloped by the rainbow light, whether they were humans, saints, demons, or even savage beasts, their strength skyrocketed once again. It was exactly the same as when Murong Yu broke through to the ruler realm. Murong Yu's physical body had reached the ruler realm, blessing the world. Someone broke through to the ruler realm again? In the holy world, A few people who had some understanding of worldly phenomena couldn't help but be shocked. However, they soon became puzzled. This was because they could sense that the aura this time was exactly the same as the one from before. Could it be that the same person had broken through to the ruler realm twice? Cultivation? Physical body and soul? Which two aspects had this person broken through to the ruler realm? This thought appeared in many people's minds, but they quickly rejected it. How could he become two rulers? In reality, what they didn't know was that Morong Yu was already three rulers. His physical body, cultivation, and soul were all at the ruler realm. His strength had skyrocketed once again. Although he still wasn't a match for a rebirth realm expert, he had at least closed the gap between them. At this moment, even if he faced the heavily injured youth in embroidered robes, Morong Yu could at least put up a fight. However, that was all he could do. However, if he used his weapon fragments to catch his opponent off guard, Morong Yu could still kill him. Three rulers. Morong Yu's eyes opened abruptly, and a trace of joy appeared on his face. However, before he could celebrate, the scene before him changed. In the next moment, an incomparably dazzling light flashed before his eyes. At the same time, terrifying waves of energy bombarded him from all directions, trying to kill him. Humph! Morong Yu's heart was filled with rage. Without any hesitation, he sent out a punch. With a boom, the space around Morong Yu was shattered. As for the power that was trying to strangle him, it was also successfully shattered. At this moment, Morong Yu finally had the time to observe his surroundings clearly. He appeared in a vast and boundless continent. The energy of heaven and earth here was even denser than the densest place in the holy world. However, there was a large group of people fighting in front of him. The energy that attacked him just now was the aftermath of their attack. This definitely wasn't the holy world. Morong Yu's pupils constricted. This was because the weakest of these experts was a one-star sector lord. Although they weren't as strong as Tsang Tian, they were definitely stronger than titled paragons. He had actually left the holy world and appeared on another planet. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.